capture sequestration pipeline project. Are you guys familiar with that? Right? The construction of this project will not begin until March of 2023. This company is currently working on surveying and easements, and I consulted Elton and to see what we would need to do. And his response was that we need to simply need to add pipelines to the definitions and the list of things that need permit. No change to the actual comprehensive plan, just the ordinance itself. The commission will need to decide if they want to do this, and the pipeline is probably already regulated at the federal and the PUC level, and will require private easements, which I said they're already working on those easements.
They don't need any public property, or they need this development.
Public property, well, a letter went out to most of those county and landowners. I have a copy of one here, Jim, if you want to look at it.
I'm sure there would be private property involved, but what about our rights of way? What about crossing our highways and our?
I guess I'm not absolutely positive about that.
They've got, they're gonna have to.
They have to, yeah. They're gonna have to cross them.
I did see a projected map, but they're really cutting across country, taking the most direct route generally.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that'll be coming this year, eventually.
I would think so. There's been a guy that's been from North Carolina, who's the one that I've been talking to quite a bit. He's been in my office, and then also I talked to him many times. So I just thought we better get the conversation rolling on this to get it added to the plan.
What's it called?
It is the Summit Carbon Solutions CO2 capture and sequestration pipeline project.
And so what's in the pipelines?
CO2 from animal waste and plant waste in a roundabout way,
And,
basically.
ethanol plants.
Yeah.
The
So I
or
think,
byproduct from ethanol plants, to make it into a slurry. They're gonna supposedly pipe it to North Dakota and then pump it a mile into the underground and capture this carbon underground.
I'm not gonna get the-
That was the oil production typically. I'm sure a lot of it. This is one
They want to come through here because it's direct route, or because we have producers that produce that kind of waste product? Why do they want to come through here?
We're on the route.
Is it both?
Going down the street.
Yes, go Jim, you say it.
I think it's part of the Green New Deal, a whole lot of taxpayer dollars are gonna get spent for a foolish project. That's my honest opinion, my opinion only.
And we're in the path of least resistance. Well, we are, there's a lot of, people, we can do a path of least resistance.
I intended to call the Redfield ethanol plant today and see if they could give me an idea of how much carbon they produce in a year. Could Redfield ethanol plant put their carbon on one semi or two semi loads of carbon a year and drive it to North Dakota and pump this up and drive it, that's what they want to do? It just looks to me like it's going to be a whole lot of federal dollars, I think, are going to be behind this thing.
Is there a soybean plant?
What I see right now, what I've looked into it, I think it's a foolish waste of taxpayer dollars. That's my opinion. That's not the opinion of this board, that is my opinion, and it's just one more.
Well, the point of being is that there's action that we need to take and add this to our resolution as it stands now. Or look into it,
Right.
or leave it lay and wait till later date, or where we go.
It is not addressed whatsoever in that list of 40-some things.
No, it is not. It's not
With a
listed.
conditional permit.
It is not.
Okay, if it's not there, then you don't need a conditional use permit for it, then you can do it.
Right, if it's not.
She's saying we should add it.
We should add.
Yes, I'm saying that it's probably in our best interest to add it, but I'm not a commissioner. I'm
At
just here
least that
to.
makes them come to us.
Right.
Whether we can do anything to them or not, who knows?
Right. If you don't do anything, they just walk all over.
Right.
Then they do.
So that's my question to the board. Procedure that you'd like to go forward with.
What would we have to do, just add it to the list?
Right.
The ordinance doesn't have to be.
So Doug, he just basically said we would just change our ordinance So we would need to list it as either a permitted principal use or add it as a conditional use. So just basically list it so that it's in our plan, so that, like you said, they will have to contact us and we have a conditional use permit.
Then you want it on a conditional use.
I would say, because we don't want to cross all over highways and county roads and township roads, we ought to at least have a little say in here, not, and under what conditions are they gonna leave them roads and yada, just like all other conditional use permits.
Right.
And that's just my personal opinion, anything else that needs to be added to the list.
I make a motion, we add it to the list of conditional use.
Well, if we're gonna do that, maybe we should look at what those conditions are, which if met, allow for the issuance of a conditional use permit, because maybe none of them have any relevance in this area of concern. Those dealt mostly in the log facilities.
Yeah,
Those 8 areas, there's 8 sections.
but there's road permits and.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is in there, so maybe there's a lot more than that.
But then we'd be changing the ordinance.
We would,
Instead of just adding that to it.
right.
So I have a copy of the permitted principal uses and then also our conditional uses. There's 15 conditional uses. Do you want me to read them all to you?
Well, as long as that's not there, no, we don't need to.
Okay, and then there's 54 permitted uses.
And there's none of those 54 that you can stretch and
No.
micromanage into a definition of what this is.
Into a pipeline?
Yeah.
No.
I
Not
thought there was
that.
one that said environmental projects or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
We follow it all.
If they're gonna cut across country, the easements are between them and the landowner. Are we only looking, as long as they put it back to the satisfaction of the landowner, that's not really our concern, I don't think. The real concern would be, I would say, if it's a pipeline leak, no different than, you know, the concerns with an oil pipeline or whatever. What is the county's recourse gonna be if there's a pipeline leak and we've got carbon slurry coming out of the ground?
It's slurry toxic. I mean, CO2 is toxic, the whole world breathes it every day.
Every growing living thing
Yeah.
thrives on carbon.
Yeah. So, my question is, do we need any regulation for the private people
I don't know.
and the leaks that might occur on private property?
To me, the biggest concern would be our, for the most part, our public right of way that we have to deal with. And we maintain, they dig through our road, they put it back to the way it was, we all know that he put it back the way it was in some fashion. In 2 months, is it really gonna be the way it was? After everyone drives over it and everything's settled, and who's gonna go back and refinish that, add gravel, and
I'll play devil's advocate here. We just let a fiber optic company plow right across our county road. They come out of one ditch, plow across the road and into the other ditch. And I went to the company that was doing it, told them to stop. They made a few phone calls and this board said, go ahead.
Do we get anything out of it?
That's what I'm saying, we,
Your computer works on fiber optic, but does the slurry deal, do we get anything out of it?
it's no different.
The only difference is,
I can't get it.
our public utilities just apply for access to the road. We don't regulate them any more than just to permit that. So like we did it for Web Water, we did it for,
But
we go to Energy, we did it for Northwestern, we did it for Venture, because they're considered public utilities.
But they're public utilities.
This is not.
Okay, I understand that, but they're public utilities, the water, they bore under every road.
we were on
They bore under every road. We let the company come in here and just plow through the road. And they said they're gonna put them all back the way they were. Well, I've yet to see them do one of them where they got that way.
Okay.
It's different, we're off
Anybody
topic.
want to act on this, or we just want to go forward?
I just just want
I
to
made a
reduce
motion.
your
I got a
expense,
motion.
that's
We
all.
got a motion.
I would second that.
What was the motion?
The motion was to add it to the conditional use. They have to have a conditional use permit.
I don't think we should do that yet, because I think we need to know first what kind of regulation we might want to be able to, direct them to, if we allow that with conditional use permit. Is it just the stuff that we've got for hog farms, basically? It doesn't really apply very much to it.
Right, I agree with you.
Pipeline. Maybe we need testing every week, maybe we need,
I don't know.
monitors and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. We
Maybe we
need
need
a monthly
hire-
report, we can't have,
Maybe we need to hire somebody to, like,
yeah. I think it's too soon to say that we should add it.
expert on 4-H.
I
I think it's okay to add it, and come up with the verbiage later.
You
I'm
know,
not
yeah,
expert on pipeline.
Could we add it and do the verbiage later?
and maybe one of these ones.
That's what I think.
That without.
I mean, so it's in there. I
Maybe
agree with you.
the things coming in at sometimes dry, you know. I get where you're at,
At
Jim.
least
Well,
it is-
I'm taking my resignation back as long as we are open to providing some, regulation in that area.
But we need to
So
do
maybe
some
the
research.
solution is just to insert the word to initiate.
No, I think we can go ahead and add it. But we need to be mindful of the fact that with the timeline Jamie's talking about, we need to get on the stick and find out what kind of regulations we need to get passed, should they apply for conditional use permit.
I think when it becomes fact, no matter what we said the conditional use permit, we had the right to add anything we wanted to. All we needed, like that, is when we added stuff, then if there went, but we felt we needed it.
But they have to be within those 8 areas of concern. It can't be something in left field. We can't say all of a sudden,
Well, it can't be something unreasonable.
well, look, I mean, look at the things that we,
The speed.
parking can't be a problem.
Right.
Highway traffic can't be a
There's
problem.
the way.
Signage can't be a problem, you know,
Right,
it's got nothing to do with
no,
CO2 pipeline.
no. I agree.
No leakage or nothing like that. I mean, if
Um,
we spill logs and they're all over the place, that would be a leaking. That ain't,
Well,
maybe it
this
should be.
is to issue it in the first place.
Yeah,
They wouldn't spill anything yet. This is just to give them a conditional use permit to start spilling. So there aren't any problems.
I got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? One out of two. We'll be under your advice, and if you got anybody that's pertinent information.
Okay.
Well, this one is very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Make us
sure.
some sort of legitimate.
I've been kind of emailing some of my contacts just to see, you know, I know we're not in the county, that's the only thing. And then also, I just wanted to update you guys on the GIS, really quick, so for, oh, gosh, I'm 45. There's only 42 parcels left. He's almost done with our GIS, so we need to start thinking about if we're gonna offer it to the public on our website, and if we're gonna start
What are your
with
thoughts?
speed. I've been asking a lot, so I'll bring more of that when it gets closer to the time, but I think we should charge something for it.
And do you get a lot, I mean, I know you'll bring some, but do you get a lot of requests?
I visited with quite a few appraisers that come into the office, if it would be something that they would like to have. Yeah, and they all say yes, you know, because then it would save them a trip, or they can just look it up online.
Do we charge a per foot? Pipeline belongs to our county.
Well, that's a good question, Kim. I don't know.
A per foot charge. to our county. It's not a utility and it's private entity, can we charge it per foot?
The proposed,
Okay, I wrote it down. Yes, thank you guys.
the proposed map I see just ran across a little bit of the part of the county, not even all the way across. And if I remember correctly, I think this is I may be wrong, I think it's a $50 billion project or something like that.
You know what an oil pipeline crosses private property, they pay tremendous, I mean, other property, they pay huge taxes. There's counties in South Dakota that don't really have any land taxes.
You ought to-
Because of the pipeline.
You ought to tell you what we take for it.
Oh,
You give a lot of them guys, I don't know. Anyway, where are we supposed to be at 145?
Public hearing.
2 years.
Public hearing.
Yep, there's 2 hearings to be held roughly at the same time. You can do them in good order. I would probably suggest that we at least get the ordinance out of the way, and then we can talk about redistricting in more detail. This would be your second reading of ordinance 2021-03, which created licensing provisions for cannabis establishments. And my office has not received any correspondence either in favor or against any part of this.
Have we met all of our obligations as far as public notice?
Yes.
Are we ready to take action?
If it would require a motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
I would entertain.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-03.
I'll second.
George, roll call. Jim Ashenbaum,
Aye.
Jim Jones,
Aye.
Luke,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Jeff, aye. Unanimous.
Okay, with that being done, then I will publish this notice that appears in the second bullet point. My interpretation of what I was told is that because we don't want to publish the entire comprehensive plan, we simply publish this notice that this is now added. Okay.
Doug, can I ask something real quick?
Yeah.
Does that recent Supreme Court rule about recreational use of marijuana have anything to do with this ordinance?
No, because this is about the establishment, not the recreation.
Anything to do with that? No overlap. Okay.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna stand for this. In front of you is the laminated map of the district boundaries that are proposed and the threshold resolution. That's the notice I'll publish.
Oh, that's no.
And so what I need you to do is to look at this very carefully. The model resolution is what will be adopted at a future meeting, either at the end of the month or the first month, or first meeting in January. But what I need you to do is to proofread the map against the verbiage within the resolution. So I figured if each of you looked at your own district, that would probably be the easiest way to do it.
You should put each other,
Maps, absolutely.
so everybody can see what we're looking at.
So really what you're doing is, the only thing you have to do is proofread it and then see if anybody in the gallery wants to offer comment.
Did we not previously approve this? Doug?
Provisionally,
I
yes.
thought we did.
Yep. So this is the map of the city, and just for the benefit of all of you out there. The biggest change that took place here, this is Jim Jones's area, is that this portion of the city of Miller switched. This used to be part of District 2. And then, so that his district could have the right population, it had to be added. And then the area around the city of Miller also went into his area to be population. And so that meant that your area over here lost the area outside the city limits, which is Miller Township.
So he's strictly in the city.
Both of them now, their entire areas are within the city limits.
Now, our outlying ones, what was the change in the outlying?
Okay, if you don't have any questions here, I'll switch the map.
That makes perfect sense to me, don't you? What
I
happened?
hate to see us aligned as people who represent city districts and people who represent county districts.
You gotta think of it as population.
I know, but I wish there was a mix of both in each of the 5 districts.
Ain't nobody lives where I live no more.
Yes.
This is the problem. There ain't nobody that lives where I live.
My link to the map is gone. My link to the map is gone. So, I'll hold this for your benefit. So, this is normally Luke's area. He used to come up here and play out of Wheaton Township. Instead, you ended up closing District 1, and then Luke got the ones south of the correction line, this is Reheight and Midland. And so there was enough population difference in the two that we basically balanced. This area basically remained pretty much unchanged. This area here used to be part of his district, and then it changed, but then he captured the outside of North Township.
But mine just changed, it just extended.
Yep.
His run on down.
Yep.
City of St. Lawrence was in Gibbs before and remains there.
Yep.
Where's that line?
Right here.
Right?
Yep.
So it's the center.
Well, actually, it would be where Marlon Winters lives,
It's on the
because
township,
that's the statutory section.
it's on the township line.
Yep.
Did you personally do the math to figure out that we're all?
Honestly, Eric Singer and I did this together.
Okay.
He's very well versed in that one map. This thing shows the block data, and that's what the census has.
That's the population census.
And it's not voter based, it's population, so kids are included.
Okay.
So if you want to take time to look at that, you certainly can. I just wanted to have to, so that you would have an opportunity to look at it, analyze it, look for spelling errors, boundary errors. You don't have to take any action on it. I like if I misspelled Colbert Township. Because we can't change it for another 10 years, so that's why it's so important.
Anybody feel like they over?
Okay, so if that's the case, it will be on the January,
For final approval.
yep, in the present form that it is.
Okay.
So if you do see something that needs to be changed, you would need to change it between now and whenever your last meeting of the year.
His resolution.
Yep.
And you something else.
Yep, and I printed a copy for you to take with you.
So we'll plan on that for very Polymer to take care of in January.
That is correct.
So
So the only thing left to do is to see if there's any public comment.
Any comment from the public on the border lines as they've been readjusted?
Look at them jump over each other.
And St. Lawrence people love me.
Crickets.
Okay.
So I'd say that concludes the public meeting.
What about the publishing of that? Oh, we need to do that notice.
Nope, just that is for reference for you guys, so you know it's gonna go in the paper. Okay, that's far enough on schedule.
Oh, just
You want to do Harlan?
Oh, I skipped over Arlen.
We did?
Let's get Arlen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Arnold.
They should have got something too.
I'll take care of Sherry, she's gone.
Our time deal popped in on us, so we jumped over Arlen for a second. You don't mind getting over it. But I like to get around there.
Yep. Well, thanks for meeting with me today. First thing on my list is the mutual aid agreement with Tegra on the high angle rescue. And sent it off to Elton, and he reviewed it, had a couple questions, I answered those questions, and last night he gave me the blessing of what you had signed.
I read it, it's still baffling to me what it's here for, because it's like just a bunch of writing about, we agree that we'll help someone if we can, and they'll help us if they can, and we won't hold anyone accountable for anything.
Well, that's the bottom line.
That's the bottom, but it's, the wording is just.
This originates from a Tegra.
This was written by the state's attorney in Brown County. And was written in conjunction with the state's attorney and the emergency management. And if you read some of the other mutual aid agreements, our fire department here in town had mutual aid agreements written just like this, almost verbatim wordage with every fire department in our meeting.
Do we have a mutual aid agreement with Coin Bank?
No.
Do we have one with the railroad? have one.
Wilbur Ellis.
Wilbur Ellis. Yeah, Wilbur Ellis. We don't have one with anybody that's a private corporation. Why are we engaging in these kinds of contract-making negotiations, if we can call them that, with a private company?
Because they offer a service that we're not offering in the county. A lot of these other counties don't offer, don't have it.
So what are we offering them in our mutual aid agreement? What
And
are
if they have an incident, and they call us, we'll come help them.
Well, we're required by law to.
Right.
We don't need an agreement.
But the agreement is that we can call them in to help us, even though they're not a responding agency.
So the mutual, in reality, the mutual aid agreement benefits us.
Well, we don't have any bids, anybody's gonna get caught.
Yeah, we have a lot. Oh, look at, you know, north of town here, Wagner's, they're all in bed.
No, ours, Kent County.
Yeah,
Kent County government.
County doesn't, but this is all over everyone, the blanket.
I'm not.
This is mutual aid to our emergency management department. Is that correct?
Public tornado came through and
It seems, we've beat this around a little bit, it just seems like redundant, paperwork, wording, whatever it is. We live in a community where everybody's trying to help anybody in any way they can in reality. But I think our real question is where does this come from and why is it necessary? Would that be a consensus that we,
The reason you have to have this, or emergency management has to have this, is to alleviate liability from Tegra when they come with their equipment to help rescue someone. Is that not what, yep, that's all this is for.
Do we have an agreement like that with, Mondale County when they come and help with all the fires?
No, because they're acting on their own, we don't hire them.
I mean, they wouldn't, Tegra wouldn't come and rescue somebody unless we hired them.
No, they would probably come help us, but this puts it in writing that they're not gonna charge us.
They're not gonna charge us, and they're not liable if something were to happen.
They're still liable if they're deemed negligent. They would still be liable for that part of it. But it allows them to come in and work in their realm underneath us to help us rescue somebody from drain them or any type of high angle, whether it's down in a hole or up high.
Would it be a fair statement to say that this is a nationwide company and it's not just Kent County company? And just without this kind of agreement, this company would say, you boys mind your own. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, we could.
That's because they're not the little hometown store no more, they're nationwide.
And right now, we have nobody in the county that is trained in high angle rescue. These guys train regularly because of their elevators that they have. So they are able to respond and take care of their own, but now they're offering services out to the rural and local fire departments and rescue agencies so that they can help us. We don't have to have a specialized group that does high angles for something that isn't a huge issue for us, but it's getting worse as more bigger, larger buildings are built. And large ranchers are going into these buildings to put them out.
Is part of the agreement that, nothing is owed for the services rendered? So they save somebody, then will he be billed?
So that again, I mean,
Can Tegra charge for these services under the terms of the agreement?
under this agreement, no.
Yeah, they can't. Okay, I think that changes.
And that's just, it's similar to what we have with Retake, and we have with Weston and Polo, we have the same agreements so that.
But those are governmental agencies, or non-profit,
Non-profit.
at least.
see, that's what I wonder, like when we used to deal with Wilbur Ellis, they had a hazardous materials trailer that they would respond to chemical spills, theirs or others. And I think it was more part of like their charter to give back to the community. But they're like, we're here to call. Because we even had one with the pipeline before it became what it is now. We don't have anything to do with the pipeline other than If it blew up, they'd call us to help.
Well, if Elton thinks it's okay, I guess.
As the head of the department, do you have a recommendation for this?
I would recommend that we sign it, and put it in play because the lack of that resource in town or in the county for that matter. And with the chances of it happening, increasing the number of large bins being put up on private farms throughout the county, this is something that could happen. In fact, last year we had a young male fall into a grain bin up in the northern part of the county. And we don't have anybody within radius that has climbing ability. We have ropes, but we don't have anybody that knows how to do the actual rescue. Some of them can rappel down into the bins, but they don't do it on a regular basis. So they're not trained in the aspect of rescue. So some of that stuff we're gonna have someone come in and train them. So
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. What else you got going for us?
Update on the 911 build out after all the issues we've had with getting them here from China and all that stuff. December 15th, we are going to install it. And they've scheduled 3 days to do it. So it's Wednesday through Friday. They don't think they'll need the third day, but they scheduled just in case. They have this happen. So that'll, hopefully, by Thursday, we'll be able to flip a switch and have very little downtime. Program up and going. You'll probably see that the payment for the equipment has gone through. What I would ask is if we can make the payment for the labor. The labor had started there, started the week after the meeting. So we could, I don't think I'd make a motion or just agree upon.
To allow us to pay it mid-month.
Labor incentive amount.
60, I don't remember, but I think it's 65.
It is a bid amount, so that's not bad. I have no problem with that.
You want a motion or just?
It's better to have a motion than.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Pay upon completion. Correct.
Give it what it's.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So that'll be at that point, it'll be done deal, everything.
Yep,
We'll be working, functioning, no more,
there'll be some adjustments that you'll have to put into that labor charge.
but no other materials or things that we need to be done after that point. Like, you know, like additional radio, maybe down the road.
Other than repairs, and we got warranties on it for several years on a lot of it. Yeah, so that would break down everything should be. The company V-Tron is the one that designed it for us for many years, so we. That'll all be there.
Is there some kind of, is there any kind of training that needs to be involved, or is everything just kind of work? Should work?
There will be some training down the road, which, depending on, if there'll be some programming training so that whoever's in my position, whether it's me or somebody else, they can operate the system and fix it all. Sioux Falls 2A has learned the system in house and they're supposed to be their service. Or technical support. And they, when our original meeting was that they would train me on how to get in and work with programming. They don't like, it had to come into Miller for $800 every couple months, but it's a simple flip a switch or get in and you can change the parameter, which is something you can learn. So they're gonna work on getting the trick. Any more questions on the build-up? Okay. Next one on the list is some grant property. Yeah, I've been going through my inventory on the products that I have. And a lot of stuff through my department purchased on grants. And finding some of it, because they're purchased on grants and then they're housed in different areas such as our stair chairs, some cots, some mannequins, stuff like that, which obviously don't do any good in my office. We're actually on an ambulance store at the hospital.
what I've just come across is that some of this stuff is still in my inventory, but the paperwork's been done and transferred out to the hospital, fire department, stuff that are using it. And, so what I'm asking is if I could go ahead and remove those from my, inventory, but it reflects correctly.
Is it actual numbered items, or is it blah, 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 blah?
Yeah, they're actually big ticket items, most of them are $5,000. So like the stair chairs are, they're like $2,000 or $3,000, so we got them on the grant. And then they were transferred out into theirs, but then the physical part just took them off my inventory.
We need a motion to authorize
I
that.
think we should bring that list to us and then we'll act on it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, and it's been acted on once before, in fact, I have paperwork in here.
Yeah, but not, here know nothing about it, so I think we'll lay eyes on it.
Doesn't have to be done before the end of the year, does it?
No, just get it cleaned up and get it to reflect, and the insurance reasons.
Just housekeeping.
And the last thing I have is, Doug asked me to bring up the stair chair to demo it. In case time comes when we do the work on the elevator. Just an option of how to get, that can't walk the steps, so down the steps.
My thought is, if we needed to, we could rent a motorized one, you'll see how it works, we'll just pick on somebody, maybe Jan will ride the chair up and up, no? So if you could, we'll just take a couple minutes, go out in the hallway and he'll illustrate how this
That
works.
is, it would be currently installed under
Oh, no.
any circumstance, would it?
It's just an idea so that if you guys like the idea, we would explore renting one, a motorized.
But on a temporary basis.
Yeah.
This is actually one of the things.
We'd want to be careful if it works.
Sits over there.
All right, and then we'll take this couple minutes, right?
Okay, we'll bring that forward, we can decide to take questions.
One more line. Want to use mine?
Yes, please. We're not gonna use Jan, because Jan is not on the
You
rock.
want to ride it? Yeah. Otherwise, I'll just have you log in.
Okay, I'll put log in, and we'll get it up. I was struggling with that, I had it running while I was driving here.
Oh, shit, I just unplugged my Just make sure you get it back, right?
Yeah.
Hey, stop yourself. There's nothing there you can hurt.
Two more. Or then, they got no doors on there. We just said, well, we making, get your head. Ten more.
There's no problem.
So you could do that.
Yeah, well, we have to tackle that, and yeah, absolutely. If we have to have a bridge, that's probably good. That's just not, that, wow. Not yet. We'll have to act on that.
But with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Once we started, with that, so we started filming. And then the ones that we take out, take them on.
Yeah, see the next time. We can, with the television down there. Oh, yeah, December now.
But at least we can start, I would see about it.
Yeah.
I didn't volunteer to write it.
No, I'm just taking.
New mechanical lead. So your machine doesn't have PowerPoint. Oh, it's a generic PowerPoint. That's not how. I tried to pull it, my company won't let me pull it up from here. My connection's not secure enough?
Yeah, so, I put it on your desktop, so.
Notice the only one not coming back.
I was monkey with things.
No more questions on that?
No, but my two big guys to run it all. Cause me and you don't fall.
Right, well, I just told Jim, this is not a machine we like to get out of the ambulance very often, because usually it's a tight, old, 2 or 3 story house that has really narrow walls.
Yeah, but I could see bringing somebody down out of the house, but you wanna have something that is really gonna hold. Especially if it's snowy, ice.
Must be fairly large.
Yeah.
There's a lot of,
Arlen,
getting people out of.
Oh, I
the
won't.
basement, away from it.
I won't.
Go down to the basement to do laundry and they'll slip. and
That's
fall.
why I couldn't email it. It's too big.
Arlen,
Sorry, they were showing.
Thank you, Arlen.
No, I'm good, thanks.
They're really good.
so just to tell you.
Keep my weight up. Yeah. You look at it.
If these things are nowhere to lease them or whatever, they, it's a good place to start.
I would think they would at least get you in the right direction. 'Cause
Yeah.
it can't be the only building in the world that.
So you're having to tear an elevator out to put a new one in, you've gotta have something with a solution.
Especially government buildings, where they gotta have the ability to accommodate handicap. You gotta be really.
Oh, wow. Let's get going again, guys. Out of the slideshow. Yeah. Okay, we can just wait till.
Time to click.
Yeah, and I'll, I don't think I need this thing.
You see these out, took it. Well, let's start with, Jeff,
Road and bridge.
what do you got going, Jeff? Okay. I just have the one job I did that you can get approved. And quick, it's, the only bid I got was from Brown Construction. Very fair bid, $4.85 a ton, crushing files. Where are you crushing at? Crushing up at Joe Martin houses.
Do we need a motion to approve
I
that?
made a motion.
So moved. Second. You got this from you, man.
That bid is pretty in line with what.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bid is pretty in line, it's very lower. All right, it's good.
Make sure I get the original of that, would you, Joe? Keep me from getting in trouble with powers that be.
I made myself a copy, so that's.
Oh, perfect.
I guess the other thing we had on the agenda was bridge inspections.
This is bad news, but
Not all bad, but not all good either. We decided if you were coming, it wasn't for us, you telling us that it was an amazing thing. Yeah, this is really awesome. Leave us with it.
No, so this is part of our, the DLB, with the DOT that they like us to come to the commission. So I do this anyway, but I do have some interesting ones. So, this year, it was about half of your bridges. And it's gonna go over.
Wrong one?
Yep. Can you click down once?
How far you wanna go?
Not any further than that. Give me just a second. I put the wrong one. That's last year's. Darn it. Got in here, so we can do another piece of business while I quick do this. It's gonna take me just a few minutes.
Well, Randy, why don't you come up and get you out of the way?
We board lost all events in November 18th. And we ratified that Rocky Oak is not seeking a return. The nomination for Bill Schaefer to the approval of the board, we filled that in the spot. And the nomination for Kyle Oakley, approved to take the Dan Rocky spot. And then the elections, Matt Rogers, the chairman, Kurt Stevens, vice chairman, Freddie Lambert, secretary.
How many years was Delmer on?
About 50 since 1972.
We need to recognize Delmer for something on that one there. And every time Delmer was there, he took it out for it. I mean, he had a true interest in that. We boarded and actually took part, so I think he needs recognition for that. And his family needs to know that.
I
Very
move
much
that we-
appreciated.
I move that we commend him for all those years of service and commemorate the 4 years of service, I should say. And in that sense, express our appreciation for his loss of the same.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Do we need to ratify these changes in their governance?
Yep, we found that out through the audit.
Okay, I would move that we approve all of that, to ratify it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
On the chemical purchases, Randy's, I had them send their stuff, because there's only 3 little jugs. And Nutrient Solutions and Spirit Fresh, they're willing to keep it until spring. And then, them 2 used up the budget for last year. And for Matt's Corner, she said it would be paying on next year's budget, and she ordered it, and she's gonna keep it till spring too.
Didn't we already pay half of it? I thought we were gonna pay Max Corner half this year, half next year. Is that wrong?
He was just gonna use up his last $5,000 that he had in his budget for the end of the year. Prepaid purchase.
How are you comfortable with this order you got?
It's out of the office. That's not it.
Yeah.
Let's smoke.
So you got everything out of there.
Breathing better?
I think it's not really more than it.
We had that meeting out there, and I could smell
Well, it seemed good in there, I was
it. I could smell it in the shop even over there.
A little bit of a shot, spray this is all.
They're all washed out nice. Well, they're in about 100%. That's what they do.
Okay, then that's all I have.
We were going through the warrants here at the beginning of the meeting, and we see we had to pay, I can't think of the name, Marley's repair for, I think it was oil change. You had, someone had,
I did, I asked.
He didn't recognize the business.
I guess my deal is, are you taking your, machines to him to get them serviced, or
We do it ourselves.
you do this,
I think the last thing I got from Mark was 2 front tires.
Well, no, it looked, I mean, I just wanna make sure that anything that you can repair, but if it's under warranty, don't repair it, I mean, take it back. 'Cause, I mean, you're running new enough equipment, there should be some warranty.
Somebody over for warranty once ready.
But I mean, any other, like, maintenance you can do on it, you should be able to do that.
So
And you've been,
we do everything we can.
Well-
Oil changes and.
well, if you're doing that, then that's, I guess I never seen what it was that when you asked about the business.
Yeah.
I think it's 2 tires is the last thing.
But I don't remember actually what it was. That was just a roll, tail, pull that.
But I just know if you can, whatever you can do, you might as well do. I mean, we got you a good shop out there, you know, place to work, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
ready to go again? Okay, now it's after
It was my fault. I opened the wrong file.
Your bridge inspection is divided into 2 sections. We do, about, 2/3 of them last year and then the northern section this year. So, I guess in a nutshell, so the load carrying capacity, we reduced it on 6 bridges. We increased it on 1 bridge, closed 1 bridge. We'll talk about that here in a minute. I did, 5 of them we could do repairs that need some fixing, and 6 of them on the list. I just want to, and then we'll go over this. You have two bridges that are concrete slab bridges, designed in the 40s, and they were designed to what we call an H15. At that time, it looks like the DOT designed them, but at that time, the thinking was, well, it's a county road, it doesn't need to be designed for as heavy trucks as a state road. Well, we don't think that anymore, but too late on that one. And so you have a couple of them that we reduced, it's just too light of a bridge. And we can't change that, and you can't really fix it, we're just gotta live with it. The one that we closed was one of the steel trusses that were already programmed to replace. The deck was really, really bad shape, the timber deck was really rotten. I think the local farmers knew better, because they obviously weren't driving over it either, because it really looked bad, but we barricaded that one off to be sure that, double sure that nobody goes over that. We'll leave it closed until we fix it, unless somebody howls, but no use throwing good money into that.
Well, they just vacate the road and not have to fix the bridge.
That would be one thing that could happen to you. Sometimes that's a hard thing to do because you landlock some property.
Well, and, I mean, if nobody misses it, we'll have to be hollering about, let's
Where
do
is it?
this, why we need it.
It's just north of 10 hours, you east of Swank, and then north, and there's a couple of people that still use it.
Oh,
I think part of it was across the, a long way around, they didn't, but I did get a couple calls, and I wondered what was going on.
Oh, okay.
That's what I think the deal is on some of these that, they look pretty remote, but if you landlock some property, then you just can't, even though it's not much of a road.
So we put posts down so that we're only four-wheeler accessible. Oh, I suppose, you put cement in our area, so you only have 6 foot to get through or something, so they would only be a walking or four-wheel accessible. Or would you even okay them for that much?
No, I wouldn't. It was really bad. It was really bad. I didn't drive my car across it. So
Maybe the farmers would go out there and put some of their own deck.
maybe they go fast.
Is that the bridge you had me look at?
No, that was over by Home Carrier. That's been replaced with pipe. That's all been.
So this is really rotten. I got pictures of it, so we'll look at that in a bit. And you got one other bridge, and this is on the county line, and it's the same one. It's probably your biggest bridge in the county. And it isn't much of a posting. You know, it's 28 ton for the single unit and legal loads for the multiples. So it doesn't pass for some of those, what we call special use vehicles. Those are the single dump trucks with 3, 4, 5 axles under them. You see them around hauling concrete. So it doesn't pass for all of those, passes for most of them. So that was the steel bridge. The slab bridges don't quite make it on either one, but it's, yeah, there's still. So the ones and I got some that we'll figure we replace or fix up a little bit. And those 3 that I just talked about, the decks are getting a little rough. So you can, we can rehab them, but that's something we can think about. That is not a emergency repair, but it would extend the life of them. I can't rehab them and make them stronger, because I can't clap my hands and put bigger girders under it or any of that, but we could, some of them got some spalls in the deck and some rebar showing and that kind of stuff. We could fix that up sometime in the future. One of them, then got one to put a collar around, and one of them is the 2 ice damaged ones is really bad. And we talked about that, and you'll see. It's the same thing.
Those are what you talked about before.
These are 2 different ones that I found, but it's the same problem. Icebergs came down. They're timber piles, and they pretty hard on the leading corner of the bridge. So the icebergs come and hit them and bust them up or off. And we'll see. So go on next one. And here's the ones with the replacements. Many of these are just old and rough. And we'll look at pictures of those. Go on to the next one. So here's one of the repairs. This is what I was showing about. You see that kind of groove there? There's a rebar there that's starting to pop up. So that's some of that we would fix. A lot of times when we fix those, they run a milling machine and they take about 1/4 of an inch off the whole deck. And then we might fix a few of these little spots, and then we put what's called a polymer chip seal, or an epoxy chip seal. What it is it's just a two-part epoxy, and then they got this special rock they import from Idaho, and they blow that on, and that epoxy sets up just that rock hard, and so it seals the deck, so no water, no salt can get through anymore, and then it ups the skid resistance a bunch. That's what we look at. So that's what we're looking at, and similar to the next one, please. And this one also has got undermining. So if we're gonna do one, we could do both and fix that undermining.
Yeah, good bridge, that's a 1957.
Yeah, that's pretty nice one. Yeah, that's one of those designed in the 50s that had the light load, light design truck, so there it is. Yeah, let's look at this one quick. This one's a concrete slab bridge. Next one. So we got a bad column there, right at the water line. And it was low water this year, fortunately, because sometimes those are hard to see. You can kind of see where the water line wants to be. And so sometimes, what I'll do, I'll walk up in with waders on and probe around with my foot, but here I can see it. So what we do there is we put a culvert around it, put a concrete collar around that, and chip off the that. So we'll fix that one. Here's one that's the worst ice damage, and that's where it is. It's just a little bit from Rockham, but up the second worst. And that's right there. So you see, and a lot of times, sometimes we can live with some of that, but this bed cap is, cantilevered out so that it's carrying some of that last load. So what we do here is you might knock off some of that, put a collar around it, pour concrete there, and that would help with that would take care of this one. Next one. And we'll go to the next slide. Oops. This one's worse. This is a different bridge. So this one, I think it knocked off a couple piles, and so
That second one's rotted at the bottom and top of it.
yeah, but it looks like here. But I think there was probably this. Just going from here, this is probably the second or third pile in that line. Well, what we do is probably just drive a steel pile right in front of that one, and weld on another piece of right underneath it. So that way you don't have to take anything apart. But that's what
The one that's, Brad, the one that's like this, that's separated, that's ice damage, you're saying?
Oh, yeah. You can see it chewed up this pretty good too. So what happens is, the bridges are at kind of an angle, so the water comes and wants to make a turn.
Yeah.
So the icebergs come and they hit this corner first
It takes all.
and knocks them off. Putting that steel one there would help that too. Because it's less, a lot of times what happens is it might not necessarily break them off right away, but it abrades them and abrades them and abrades them and finally they break. And that's right. We don't build these anymore. But there's lots of them out there. So that's the deal with that one. So those are so you have two more of those up north. Okay. That's what we got here. This one here, the next one, same. You can see some rebar here and here, and we do the same thing. Now this isn't a rush job. This is one you don't necessarily have to even do. It's an old enough bridge that deciding to do nothing is maybe a course of action you could think about too. But what we do there is mill that off and do one of those epoxy chip seals.
So does the whole deck get that treatment or just the effect?
The whole deck, yeah.
Is that expensive or is that?
It's all expensive, but yeah, it is. That'll cost very.
On an old bridge, do you think maybe it's got 10, 20 years life left?
These don't look bad. I would automatically just, let's do it if it weren't for the H15 design, so they're posted. And they're posted and they will never come up.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if they're limiting our farmers and their travel right now, how much money do we want to spend?
That's,
Or do we want to keep them on the list to get them
yep.
updated?
So condition wise, you're gonna have an awful hard time getting a grant on this one, because they're not in bad shape. So, it would,
They're gonna be down the list.
a long ways. So-
They're on the busy road.
It's on, yeah, it's on your county line. They're busy, but all of them are really busy roads.
Can you cross them, Jeff? No. You just can't walk across them.
One of them, the steel bridge, you can haul multiple, big units across. The concrete slab bridges, are 36 ton. Like 36 ton, you can't haul a full legal semi.
So you have to be half-full and go across in the side dump.
Yeah,
Because the side dumps are heavy.
yeah. Okay.
That's my question.
So, okay, and next one, please. So here's some of my replacement candidates. So this is what I'm looking at. This is the abutment. They just get really, you got this around the county. This one just happened to be scaled quite a bit worse than others.
It was been full of water.
Yeah, I know, that's really, it would have been a lot cheaper for you if it had water in them. Yeah, same one, this next one, is similar, that's where the wing walls want to break off. And right above it is a deck unit, and so you got the diagonal cracks there too, so. Got plants growing out of there, above it's just really bad. And here, this one is getting pretty cracked up and crumbly. These are all abutments, they're one spans, and so they're just getting pretty rough. This one, can you back up one? This one, yeah, okay, this one we need to talk about. This is straight south of Rockham on the oil road. This bridge was built in the 30s. And I have plans on this bridge, so I could crunch the numbers. All right. This bridge is a concrete slab bridge, meaning there's no girders, it's just the concrete deck has reinforcement in it that holds the bridge on. Normally we have a mat of steel on the bottom and a mat of steel on the top. This one does not have a full mat of steel on the top. It's got some bars right over the bends. And those bars aren't long enough. And what we do is the steel in a concrete takes the tension force, and the concrete takes the compression. Because concrete is really strong in compression and weak in tension, and steel is the opposite. Well, in order to develop that steel strength, we embed the rebar in concrete. So, if you embed it far enough, and you're pulling on that rebar, it won't pull out of the concrete, it will stretch, it would break the rebar before it would come out of the concrete. And that's called the development. This one doesn't have any development, so I couldn't use the full carrying capacity of the bar. So we either extend the bars, or we put a hook in them. I got plans, I crunched the numbers, and this one is posted pretty low, 12 ton. It's about 12 and 24 ton on the rock road, so.
How long is that one?
Have a load, 40 feet-ish.
I think that's 53, right?
Maybe it's a little bigger. So this one's the problem. We're gonna hear about this one.
That's pretty big.
Yes, and that is a extreme, it's a very high reduction in load carrying capacity on one of your main roads.
And no good way to get around it.
No, that's when I was looking at this one, oh my goodness, man, any other bridge with this one.
Was that one previously scheduled, or wasn't?
I just looked at it this year, so it's not how
It was so bad so fast.
it wasn't necessarily bad, it is. So the bridge design code had major changes in 1944. It was designed before 1944, it was scheduled. And this was designed in the 30s. And frankly, most of the time when they're just that old, I don't have plans. So then I load rate them based on the condition that I see. I got plans on this one.
So this is like a, to fix it right, start over.
Yeah, you got rid of this one out. This is a concrete bridge, there's no fixing it, you got rid of this one.
Are we gonna get infrastructure money likely, I should say?
Well, we visited about this, this one can be eligible for that. That process takes a while. So we visited, you know, Jeff and I were visiting in the hall. And I'll do this when I get back to the office, I'll have our hydrology guy run the drainage area on this one, and see if this one could be a box culvert. If you think it can be a box culvert, we could get a precast box culvert and Jeff could put it in.
Well, that's a 53-foot hole. Well, you're thinking maybe it don't drain as much as what they thought.
Yeah, you see that sometimes, and with these box culverts, we can go with a 14-foot span cell, so, and we could put two of those beside each other, so we could have 4 14-footers or more. I mean, just keep adding to it. You see, we would add to it. I've done a bunch of these type projects, and how I've done some of these is there's a county bid, either Beetle County or somebody gets a bid from the precasters, so you can buy off this bid and it's legal. A double box costs you $100,000. 4-barrel box costs be 2 doubles, so it'd be about, $200,000 to buy, delivered, depending on, thereabouts. And then, so we can do this, and, the level of engineering effort, when I'm running through the DOT, there's a lot of effort that I wouldn't do on this one. Like, I would size this one, and I'd give them 3 pieces of paper. I'd give them a drawing with the length on it, how to lay it in there, with flow line elevations. And then, when I do it through the DOT, I mean, it's 150-page report. So I can give you a bare bones, keep the costs down, and it'd be accounted for.
And whatever you give us would be something that you could guarantee us.
I wouldn't skimp
That they
on
would approve.
the engineering side of
Transportation
that.
would say, this is acceptable, a box, or, what do you call them, box culvert.
They would, yes, yeah. I put in box culverts, precast box culverts all the time I've done many of those through the DOT. The DOT isn't against the precast. The beauty of the precast is a couple of things. You don't need a bridge contractor to build them. And what's happening is there's getting to be a lot of bridge projects out there, and not a lot of bridge contractors, and they can't find help either, so they can't, it's like everybody else, they can't expand, and the price is going up.
Do you have to have pre-approval from the department?
No, you do county direct one, you do it. But you should have me run the hydraulics on one like this, so that you have something to go, hey, the engineer figured out how they want to put it in. Because if you don't, and you miss it, you get hauled into court, and then the judge, you don't have any. With me, you got me going in there saying, yeah, you ran the numbers and it works.
Besides, if you like this, you wouldn't be that big.
It might be.
You might have to be that big, you know?
Yeah, and I have a number of those, especially these really old ones. My level of confidence on how they size them is, I don't know. Anyway, that's this one. So this one, just brace yourself, because after tomorrow, we're gonna hear about this. The signs are going up, and
Is it in?
yeah. Is that by your house? Okay, is your district? Yeah. So I can't help it.
I mean, it's got, for safety reasons, it's got to be.
Yeah.
It's literally too.
And because I got plans, now I know better, I can't do anything else. Okay.
Gotta keep moving.
Okay, now I know I'm using up too much time. That was the big zinger that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Let's just look through the rest of them.
We heard
Here's some of these, the bad ones we're talking about. The apartments are looking not so hot. You have a bunch of these. These are ones that I said we should put in the program and get them replaced in the next
There's no
5 year window.
The abutments and even decking, and something like that.
No. Like this one here, too, and these are so far gone that there's no sense to it. Same thing, abutments. So we got 6 of those, that the abutments look really horrible, and it's a common theme, and, you really have a bunch of those.
How many of them can be replaced with tubes? Any of them? Any of them, sir?
Maybe. Maybe all.
Okay. It's just something.
You have a lot of these little one-span bridges that the decks look like that, they're steel I-beams with the corrugated metal and all sorts of different conditions, but most of them bad, that are not very big. They're in that 40 feet or under, and just an educated guess that every single one of those could be a box culvert, a 2-barrel or a 1-barrel.
Or a big 6-foot tube.
Maybe, because, and when we do those too, I always do a round. Round is the cheapest shape, because they centrifuge spin those. They make those, they're a lot less labor to make. So I always run around. I started to push it though, because what happens is when you're replacing a square with a round, the bottom third of a round doesn't carry very much. And the bottom third of the square carries the same as the top third of the square, so they get a little dicey.
You run the hydrology on all of them, racing to make that.
Yeah, and we always check around. First thing we do is we just measure from the stream to the low steel and run around that diameter. As big a one as we can make fit, and put a couple of them in, and if that doesn't work, then we put the squares. I don't get very many that work too well with the rounds that are over 20-some feet. The bridges start to get wide, because there's some requirements too where we don't want to downsize them too much, that you raise the water surface profile upstream more than a foot. We try not to raise it more than a foot for issues. At the 100-year, some very large, and we have bridges with a low grade, where it doesn't matter how big of a bridge you put in, the water's over the road, and then we don't have to do that. Then a lot of times pipes will work because.
Well, we put in 3 or 4 pipes at a time.
Oh, yeah, and you have lots of those too, and there's lots of pipes out there, so. We just gotta, there's good and bad there too. The water will go over the road more often, but at a lower cost. And then some roads you can do that too, and so. That's what I got. I'm trying to go through that as fast as I can.
All right.
Call me anytime.
Will you mention just for all of us, all of our benefit, the funding source for that 200,000 potential?
Well, Jeff and I spoke briefly about using some fuel tax money to fund like the removal of it, if it was gonna happen this year yet. But otherwise, right now, it looks like we would fund it 100% or so.
Okay, but we did budget for that.
Oh, no.
So we've been ready for a blow.
Right.
That's why we need to find out a couple box culverts.
Yes. And what, I can give you an educated guess and I'll just flip that over.
Are they readily available? I mean,
It takes you a few months, but if you order them in the winter, they like, that's, the precaster folks put you in line, you get a good price too. You can do them in the winter, you get them quicker. If you order one in May, you might be seeing it in November. But if you order one in November, you might see it in January, you know what I mean?
And I think like on that main road up there, we need to take it seriously.
Oh, yes.
And for no other reason, it's just like you said, if we get an order and they have it sitting there, when time has come, we need to put it in.
Yeah,
We can't do that to them guys, we can't.
It's
stranded up there.
no, it wasn't great. I just knew that was coming.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, all right, call me anytime.
Rookie?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Grab the phone.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, guys.
Page 3.
Yeah, let's jump to that one.
Come on up.
But we're gonna jump ahead here.
All right.
Save you some time.
Yes, we can.
Stuff that interests you. Probably make me more comfortable.
How you doing?
Good. I'm Emily Johnson. I am, probably the nurse team lead, but I am the nurse that's kind of in charge of the nurse community health offices in the central region of our state, which Dan falls into. This is Deanna Waldron. She's the nurse. We both live in here. And she is now the community health nurse for here in Han County. She comes here Mondays and Tuesdays, about 9:30 to 4:30. Just to factor in that travel time. So we just want to come introduce ourselves.
We're gonna meet you both.
Yes, we are happy to be here. I brought just a brochure, and after I printed it, I just realized it was an older one, so don't pay attention to the map on the back, but the information on it is still relevant to today. So we provide Wic Services, women, infant, and children, which is a supplemental nutrition program that comes out of the USDA for pregnant women and young children up to 5. Provide all kinds of foods, milk, whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables, canned. And then formula support for moms. Immunizations, we provide immunizations. We won't be keeping them here in this office, but definitely if somebody needs them, we keep them in here and we can bring them to provide those for kiddos. And then we provide just kind of community case management for pregnant ladies, providing them resources and services, and following them along education. We can get them pack and plays. We have the safe sleep program, so moms don't have a safe place for baby to sleep. We can get them a pack and play, we can get them a car seat. We're really just out there to educate and to provide health services for folks. Let's see, breastfeeding support. Deanna is an expert at breastfeeding, and so folks can come in and she can provide that resource to them. And then our new service that we provide is fluoride varnish for kiddos. Medicaid covers, a lot of insurances do twice a year for fluoride. A lot of the clinics provide it too, but if they're in our office, we can definitely get that done for them too. Those are kind of the happenings that will happen, and we're just down the street, so.
The office getting all set up and.
It is, it was kind of ready to go from the last time it had been used. Yeah, we were kind of ready to go, so.
Does page 16 mean that there are 17 people in Han County that are using,
Monthly average, yep, so monthly in the year 2020, on average 17 clients were receiving Wic services.
okay, when you go to the WIC page, which is the last page.
Yep.
Look at Han County. One retailer is approved for WIC, is that right? Or one is participating?
The grocery store here in town.
That's the only one?
Yes, that's correct.
So you divide 17 into 7,000, that tells you about what they're getting each one of them?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, is that below or above
I have
normal?
to do the math.
That doesn't sound like very much
It
money.
depends on what the client's getting. So if it's formula, of course, we all know formula is very expensive.
Yeah.
Where you might have a 5-year-old child that's getting, or 4-year-old child getting, just a normal food package. I don't know what it comes out to. The other interesting thing is with the pandemic, USDA approved, it's been, fresh fruits or fruits and vegetables, and it can be canned, frozen, or fresh. It used to be $9, and now it's $23. And if you're a pregnant mom, it is $47, and it used to be $11. So that's been huge for getting folks in our door, and we're hoping that continues. Right now, it's approved through March of 2022, but we're hoping that. And the retailers have been great to work with to get folks what they need.
When you're saying 15 in Han County, is at 35%. 35% of what pool?
Yeah, so they look at WIC eligible clients. So who they're looking at typically are in your county who is eligible for Medicaid. So if you're eligible for Medicaid, you're typically all automatically eligible for WIC services.
Single mom,
If you're-
income-based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So only 1 out of 3 people is using this program?
Right, so,
Who would qualify otherwise, huh?
so it's income based, so a lot of farm families qualify. And so it's just, I don't know, that's kind of an ongoing conversation with the health department as far as kind of breaking that stigma and getting folks in our
Do you
door.
think stigma, or do you think they don't know?
I think
Some
both.
people, yeah, I've had a lot of people that are like embarrassed, you know?
We have folks that travel miles because they don't want to come to the local WIC office. They want to go to, they might have to here shopping and so they go there. I think it's a variety of things. We see that in a lot of our small towns, not just in our region, but we take one in South Dakota, or, you know, we see that. It is, I kind of say the bread and butter of our community health office is WIC. You know, they come in for that support and then it's, oh, like, let's talk about, you know, how you can feed your baby and breastfeeding, and do you have a safe place for your kid to sleep, and let's get you and your family caught up on immunizations, and did you know we offer fluoride varnish and that sort of thing, but it seems like WIC is kind of what brings folks typically in our door, but yeah, I mean, we are all ears on, we're just excited to be here and how we can get folks in our door, and
I haven't been over to your office. What's your signage like on your office?
we just changed them all. So, the front door, so we share the space, there's a nurse that comes every other Tuesday to do toenail care. And so she kind of has her signage too, but yeah, I prep fresh signs.
We have our number on there, hours of operation. We
Yep.
have it to our Fort Fair office,
So she's here Mondays and Tuesdays, but the peer office is open Monday through Friday. And so the messaging is, you know, if it's outside those hours, if you call this number, somebody can get you on the schedule.
Is there a different webpage for like this office here than your office, and it's all go together?
It's all together. Yep. Yep. In fact, you can see all the offices in the state. And I noticed your sign on the door, so actually 211 is a huge resource for us. So if anybody calls 211, they are trained to not only tell them about community health and WIC services, like if somebody from Canyon County calls, they can actually schedule somebody right then and there for an appointment. They don't have to call another number, so they've kind of been a big help for us.
Does Hank County Memorial still have toenail clinics?
They do, yep.
So are they competition to you?
No, we do not provide toenail care currently, so.
I do not do.
No, there's another nurse that comes and we share that space with that toenail.
But not a Hank County nurse.
I don't know how it's set, I don't know who makes it.
Yeah,
I just know she's there every other Tuesday.
Yeah.
I believe Brian does provide that.
Yeah,
think Renee's the one.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, anything else, Frank?
Yeah, any questions, anything we can help
Is
with?
that working okay over there, the facility?
Yeah, no, the facility's good,
That's
just
fine.
getting people over there.
Yeah, we're just looking for any, I mean.
Is there such a thing that you could provide like a mailing or anything like that to those folks that you know are in that?
So we actually do, so that's a great question. So, anybody that, is Medicaid eligible, so the Medicaid office actually provides that to the health department monthly, and we reach out to those women, to inquire about receiving services, so we do have a lot of outreach support. And usually for Canyon County, that's probably gonna happen in our peer office, just because she's up here and we have more clerical support there. But yeah, any other, a few of the ideas that we kind of had as far as Canyon County and just some of our smaller sites that I'm hoping moving forward in 2020 is, visiting with like your churches in town. I know a lot of families will go to churches as their first resort for food or resources, so just letting like your pastors in the town know about us and know about our hours, and we can get folks things they need. And then I want to, you know, reach out to your grocery store, make sure they, you know, how they do it, they, you know, come up with any Head Start. Is there a Head Start in town? Do you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a partnership that we'd like to probably reach out to in town. It's usually pretty successful in other communities.
As a WIC user, your app is phenomenal. I really appreciated the app.
Yeah.
the grocery store desperately needs some training on the employee side on how to use stuff. It's better since you have the debit card and you just swipe it. That is better, but the grocery store desperately needs some training.
Yeah, that's not the first time we've heard that from a lot of grocery stores. One thing that federally they're looking at, so currently you have to go to an actual cashier to check out. And they're looking at like online ordering even, so you can place your order online and it gets delivered to your doorstep. I mean, it's just the era we're living in, so, those are hoping are things moving forward that we can.
You might want to talk to the anti-ministerial,
Oh, okay, yeah.
association, I guess it's called.
Yeah, we'll do.
Group of all
Yeah.
preachers, clergy people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, WIC themselves advertise South Dakota WIC on all social media platforms, and it's targeted to that young mom population. So we're hoping we're getting the word out there.
I wouldn't stick to young moms.
Yeah.
I was 38.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
because there are more and more moms my age.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
so.
Yeah.
Please don't discourage me.
Yeah.
Usually the young moms need the support more, but
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
it just because I got divorced and didn't have a job, so that was.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right then, thank you.
Yeah,
We
thanks.
appreciate it,
Anything else?
Todd, I'm glad you could come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, how about
We're good. Good.
This cookie question.
We've had two potlucks in the last 2 days. Yes, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweet, sweet.
The brownies.
What happened?
No, I got a plate with brownies on it.
I'll take care of that, she's sick.
Big fat brownies.
Sweet.
And then chocolate on top, it's like, you cut
Or is
that
it
down.
class afterwards?
No, you're not. You're not. I only got one left. They're about this, they're about this big. You cut that down.
Mark, you guys want to come up? No class never showed up. We don't have this one.
Yes, we will.
Okay, we just don't want to.
Right, we'll just have a big makeup session at the end.
Hey, Mark.
Howdy, it's great to be back. It's been a while, so, yeah, long time no see. I want to get back and, ultimately give a project update for the Sealand Wind Farm. So, it's been a while and wanted to start off with the good news. And the good news being is we did receive the federal permit to ultimately build the project, and that came late September, early October. So for us to obtain the federal permit, it took us over 3 years. I won't say how many countless millions of dollars for us to ultimately get the federal permit, but the federal permit is called Finding of No Significant Impact. And we received that from the Western Area Power Administration at the end of September, early October. So the next steps for the project, as we look at ultimately getting the project built, is we've received a tremendous amount of interest from corporations looking to buy power from the wind farm. So right now, we're shortlisted with 3 Fortune 100 companies. So a very recognizable tech company, a very recognizable energy company, and a very recognizable manufacturing company.
What is shortlisted?
Shortlisted means we are the last project for them to ultimately select from. So, well, last being they'll keep about 3 on their short list, depending on what their power needs are. They might buy power from 2 of those 3. So we're in essence one of the last, last folks to head to the dance with them. So we were hoping to be in exclusivity with one of those 3 companies on Friday of last week. We're living in a very interesting time right now in the renewable space where there's a ton of demand for renewable power. So historically, you used to have these companies where they come to us and say, give us your best and final offer. The sign of the times is we went back to these 3 companies and said, give us your best and final offer for how much you're willing to pay for the power from the project. So we're looking to head into exclusivity with one of those 3 companies. They'll probably be next week. And then we'll start our purchase power agreement negotiations with that counterparty. And that should take probably 30 to 60 days. So one of the conditions of the permit that we have with the Public Utility Commission is once we have a purchaser for the power, we have to go back to the PUC and ultimately disclose that entity. Our intent is to come back here to Hand County and disclose it to you all at the same time. So we hope to be back here in front of you all and here in front of the PUC and probably the February to March timeframe, let you know who's contracted to buy the power.
Is there any possibility that nobody would be?
Well, if for some reason, Jim, we have a contractual impasse amongst the attorneys and we cannot come to terms on the final dotting the i's and crossing the t's, we have 3 counterparties that we're shortlisted with. So we try and roll over to negotiation with one of those other 2 counterparties.
So there's 0 possibilities that you can't market your product.
Correct. And to get, ultimately shortlisted with these 3 entities, we probably had about 20 corporations and entities that showed interest in buying power from a wind farm. So we've received a tremendous amount of interest, and we've ultimately whittled it down to 3. We hope to get to the 1, negotiate the purchase power agreement, be back in front of y'all in the February, March timeframe, and let you know who's going to be purchasing the power and provide an update on the timeline for ultimately getting the project into construction. So getting the power sold, that's one big outstanding item for the project. The other is the interconnection agreement, ultimately to get the power on the transmission line. So to get power on the transmission line, 3 entities have to sign that interconnection agreement: ourselves, the project, the Western Area Power Administration, and the Southwest Power Pool. So the Southwest Power Pool is the regional transmission authority. So what they do, they balance the power flow amongst about 8 different states. So up here in the Upper Great Plains, as far south as the Panhandle of Oklahoma. So the 3 entities that have to sign that interconnection agreement is us, Western Area Power Administration, and the Southwest Power Pool. So it has taken us, we started the process in 2017, just spelling out how long all this takes. We started the process in 2017. We hope to have the interconnection agreement in our hand on May 25th of this year. So 17, 18, 18, 19, 20. So it would have taken us 5 years to get that interconnection agreement done. So we hope to have it in our hand May 25th. Knowing how these entities work, I would not be shocked if there's some scheduled slippage, and May 25th slips by 60, 90 days. So that's looking to get executed this summer as well. So, the good news for you all is, it's a long process. It's a very expensive process, and we got to do it the right way, and a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. It's a unique project where we came to you all, for local approval. We had the state approval, we had the federal approval. We got to do our interconnection agreement. We got to find someone to buy the power. We got to make sure we're protecting all the birds, the bats, and the bees out there, and everything that goes into the project. But it is all coming together.
Absolutely best case scenario, when at the earliest will construction start and or be completed?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer the back end of that question. All turbines up and spinning October 2023. So whether we split the construction schedule 22, 23, or we build it all in 23, to be determined. But that is a schedule that we're looking at. And once we finish, those power purchase agreement negotiations, that'll determine when those entities want the power. So I can come back to you all and say, well, if they want the power no later than December 31st of 23, and that's how we're back into our construction time schedule.
Is the construction season year long? So it's through the winter or not?
Well, Jeff is still here. Because of, the road restrictions, it's not a year-long process. So when we look at, the road restrictions get put on, that's when we'll ultimately stop our construction activities if we do 2-season build. Or if we try and knock it all out and say 2023, we wait for the road restrictions to lift in May, and then we just build the whole project in 23. And what we did, it's interesting with the contractors as well, finding folks to ultimately build the project. We looked, at getting the project built back in 2021, and we used to go out and beg contractors to come out here and work the project, to build the project for us. There was just, so many projects that had to get built nationwide, and you really only have, 5, 6 big contractors that are able to take on a project of this size and this scale. And we had to beg folks to come out here in 2021 to look at the project. We actually resent the project out for bids in June of this year, and we had 7 companies. We 7 companies that came out here to look at the project, and they all provided competitive pricing, and there are 3 entities that were all within about the same price point of one another. So what that means is you have a group of contractors that are actually serious about, building the thing versus you can send one of these out for bid and you get astronomical pricing back because they're just doing you a favor. They're bidding it, but they aren't serious about actually getting the work done. But we 7 entities actually ended up, bidding this thing, and 3 were, all within the same price point. So that shows the seriousness of
How
these.
many towers would be at total now?
Same as before, so 71.
Are they the same height?
Yep, yeah, same height. So what is interesting about, this area, really in the upper Great Plains, is this is one of the best wind resources in the entire United States. So what that means from a turbine technology standpoint is a lot of folks are trying to get taller towers. They're trying to get longer blades. The wind is so strong here, what you have to do is you have to get a mechanical load analysis from your turbine manufacturer. And what that shows is with all the engineering and all the science in these turbines, that means that those turbines are not going to come apart on you in this wind regime. So what we found is some of these newer turbines that are coming on the market that are taller, have longer blades, they simply can't perform in this wind regime. These actual General Electric 2.82 machines on the lower towers with the shorter blades actually perform better here than the newer turbines with the longer blades and the taller towers. So GE will be the turbine manufacturer here, and so they've done their mechanical loads analysis, and they said their 282 will work on the short tower, but their new 303 machine won't, and it won't work on their taller tower, which is 114 meters. So it'll be the same technology as what we're talking all about, a couple of years ago. So same number of turbines, same technology.
Is that roughly the equivalent in size for the Highmore project?
Yeah, Highmore, those are, I'll speak to the other project here in Haines County just because I know that one better from the EPAs, but those are the Flipper Liberty 2.5 megawatt machines. They're on 80 meter towers, and ours will be on 89 meter towers, so within 9 meters. So 3 times 9, so 27, a little over 27 feet difference in your tower height. And then the blades out there, I want to say are about 180 feet, and ours will be about 208 feet, so within 20 feet. So the dimensions of those turbines out there, the other 10 here in Haines County versus what we're proposing, the size of the turbines are going to be about the same. Ours will be a little more efficient. Those are 2.5 megawatt is output on those turbines. Ours will be 2.82 megawatts. So we'll get a little more, juice for the squeeze out of our turbines. So yeah, we just, since Jeff is here, we just got done doing the transportation route analysis as well. And I know that was, a big conversation we had before as to how the turbines will come in. And just as we were expecting, they'll, roll off 90, they'll, roll up 45, then they'll head east down 205. So that was always, the route. And Jeff and I are looking at it. Your options are somewhat limited getting into that project site, but, from the highway 45 to 205 is how the turbines are looking to come in. So yeah, coming up here into next year, you'll be seeing more of us. So, once we get that purchase power agreement executed, we'll be back here. We'll be here as well, let you know who the counterparty is, give you an update on timing. And then when we get that interconnection agreement signed with the Southwest Power Pool and WAPA, they're saying May 25th. I don't believe it. I think it'll probably take another 60 days after that. We'll be back to update you on that, and we'll ultimately have a firm timeline on when it's coming. So.
We have a question here from Warren.
I've got one. Do we have a road haul agreement in place, or are we going to have one? How are we going to clarify any road damage if trucks are going to the hog barn and these guys are also using 205th? Are we going to run into a problem with who used the road, how much?
They aren't going to use the same roads, right?
Yes.
Are you saying 205?
Yeah, we'll be on some of this.
Skinner's road, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're using the same road.
When we met and we talked about this, remember we asked the same question, how we determine what entity caused the damage. And at the end of the meeting, and I think mistake if that none of the same roads would be used by both projects.
I can't speak for, the hog unit.
Maybe the hog people were willing to say that they wouldn't use any of your routes, but we did cover that, I know we did.
Yeah, I mean, the road use agreement has been finalized, it has been negotiated with the county. I don't recall Jim us making the statement, we wouldn't use any of the
I think
same.
they're the ones who said that.
Yeah, they might have said that, I don't recall us making that comment.
Yeah, we did.
At the time, their main project was Sunshine Line.
Yeah, and then they changed their route, because that Sunshine Road had so many soft spots in it, it wasn't holding up. So they started going up to 205th, and then doubling back down to the project.
They're gonna be on completed on the normal day-to-day stuff, but that's.
Yeah. Does that road haul, with those guys continue past, construction? So when construction is concluded, that,
When the construction's concluded, then it's gotta be rescreened for the home line and then updated, and then it'll go forward from there.
okay.
That was my plan, and yours is the same.
Ours continues through the life of the project. So, yeah, the mechanics for everyone is, before we go into construction, we actually have to be back in front of the county commissioners. We have to mutually agree upon the firm that is going to do the baseline road survey. So we'll collectively decide who the firm is that does the baseline road survey. They'll determine how much surface, the condition of existing roads that we'll be using. They'll document all that. We actually did it when we built out a little road to get to our project substation. We've been through it, once before. So we'll collectively decide the firm, they'll document the condition of the road. And then ultimately, once construction is complete, there'll be a post-construction road survey that will show the condition of the roads. And what is unique about here in South Dakota and the Public Utility Commission requirement is there actually has to be a certificate of completion that's signed by Jeff once our construction activities are complete. So that's unique to South Dakota. You don't have that in a lot of places, but that buttons it all up, right? So we put the roads back to the same or better conditions we found them, and ultimately, the county signs off that we have. And then that certificate of completion is provided to the Public Utility Commission, and that enables us to satisfy that permit requirement.
Wasn't that the arrangement, Jeff?
Yeah, so the thing I'd like to add to that, Mark, is we can do a pre-construction meeting, because we did a small project at the end of 205th, and none of those contractors knew about a hot agreement. We went through the process and got the inspection done, and everything, but they didn't know whether those should stay out and what those should be on. So, I just think we need a pre-construction meeting so all these contractors know what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. So, yeah, for everyone's benefit, before we go into construction, and we'll do the pre-construction meeting, with the road super. We'll do it with emergency management as well, and make sure from an emergency management perspective, we have our emergency response plan in place. We'll be in front of you all, the commissioners, to introduce to, they call it when we build a wind farm, a balance of plants contractors. This is your general contractor. We'll bring those folks in to meet you as well, along with our construction manager. So that way, everyone who's working on the site. And just as a matter of practice, our construction trailers and our operation maintenance building for the project will be on the northwest corner of Bayland and 205th. So it's right smack dab in the middle of the project. And, we always encourage our landowners, whether it's Jeff, whether it's, anyone locally, if there's an issue, that building is staffed. So, that has our construction manager in it. It's going to have our operation manager in it, our deputy operation manager in it. Just pop on in there if there's an issue, because there's someone there to get it addressed for y'all, so.
Any other questions, Mark? Is there any time constraints, Mark, on if you run on by with this project?
Well, quite frankly, the project will start to fall apart on us. So, when we look at the leases that we have with our landowners, and, the project will start to fall apart on us. So that's where, we're looking at, not only, meeting the demand of these folks that want to buy the tower, but making sure it matches up with the timeline of the project as well.
That time in 23, 24, 25,
Yeah, so, I mean, all our memos are recorded right across the hall. So here in South Dakota, there's a state statute that you can't take a wind lease that has a development term that's over 5 years in length. So our leases are actually, there are a couple different vintages if you go and you pull the memos. So some of our wind leases have a 4-year development term plus a 2-year potential extension. So it's a 6-year development term. There are other wind leases of ours that are 5+2, so 7 years. And the way that is structured is we also have 2 years ultimately complete construction on the back end. So you look at the 4+2+2, that could take us to ultimately 8 years. The other version ultimately gives us 9 years to get the project done. And all those memos are recorded right across the hall. So that's nothing, confidential, that all those memos can get pulled, so. But I just want to say, I mean, to y'all, the commission, the people of Hand County, our landowners, I mean, we really appreciate everyone's patience. I mean, this is a project, quite frankly, I mean, we want to get this thing built, 2 years ago, but I mean, you got to do it the right way. And, ultimately having WAPA and having the Department of Energy involved in the permitting and approval process draws that your timeline a bit more than some other projects and how they're structured. But we really appreciate, everyone's support and patience. And, we hope to be back in, March and then probably again in June with additional project updates and really laying that timeline out for you all and community. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Here. And all of the so we're kind of all over the place there.
My turn?
Yeah.
Hello, I am here to discuss the memorandum of understanding that I just gave you and take some pictures. You should have a link to it, on your agenda. From what I looked at, I did not see any substantial changes from MOUs in the past. It's not that document.
Green is, got a green.
Yeah,
You're okay with all of, you meet all those, right?
I didn't see anything that was unreasonable or out of line at all.
And make a motion, we approve the memorandum.
Second.
Sorry.
Greg, Jim?
Yes.
Second. Jim and Greg.
Great.
Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
As he's signing it.
Who said government moves slowly?
Exactly.
Wind farm.
And
Yeah, wind farm.
you'll send that to SDSU for me?
Yep.
Okay. And I do not need a cookie, I have an entire plate downstairs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one question.
You're welcome.
About that, I think. Good.
You want to go back to page 1 and we'll wait through some of this?
Back to page 1.
Getting busy.
If it's okay with you guys.
What I missed?
Treasurer's office.
There we go.
Sherry's at a doctor's appointment, so she couldn't be here, and I said I would do it. She gets a portion of her funds back for doing the department motor vehicle stuff. So she wants to use some of those funds to buy new printers. Her laser printers are getting pretty aged. For $495 a piece for a total of $990. So, it's in her budget. She
It's in her budget?
Yep.
Do we need to do that with an ordinance? I mean, with a motion?
Nope, just pending approval. Consensus only.
Okay, let's see.
No objection?
No, she
All right, so we went through the public hearing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, Mary Brightling is also homesick, and what she's doing, let me write this down here a second. Is she is applying for a grant through the South Dakota Humanities in conjunction with the state library to use funds to put handicap accessible actuators on the entry doors to the library. The American Rescue Plan Act. The money we can't spend.
Spend away.
Yep. So, we were conversing by text message just before the meeting. So, let me read it for you here quick. The cost of the door project is $3,700, $2,400 of which is coming from the grant. They would furnish the rest of it through their budget. There will also be a charge for an electrician. They have the money in the budget to pay for this. She says, if you need anything else, let her know. The question is, and this is where my conversation with the state auditor was, is technically you guys are supposed to approve anytime one of the departments enters into a grant because it binds you to certain conditions and exchange. So, that's what this is on here for. Do you have any complications or heartburn if she proceeds? I don't feel, I don't, as long as you guys approve.
Give us money that we can spend and she can
It
spend.
would be best. I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
I think it's just a good idea, anyway.
Yeah, it's right.
It's a place more accessible.
Well, and to be honest with you, I'm going to see if, because they're eligible for it, if we're eligible.
This makes things more accessible for people, especially if they're handicapped. We got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so within here, more documents. More documents. So one of them, that's the one for Harlan. Here's the minutes. You asked me that, I don't know. All right. Let's just, okay, so we're good there. And if we do need it, I'll get in touch with number two. So the next item that I have for you is the resolution of the plats. And both of these plats simply require your approval and my signature, so the chairman doesn't have to do them. Do you guys want to see them in raw form?
I looked at it, so. Is the one on the plat now? It seems like they already plotted out that way.
Is it the Churchill one?
Yeah.
They already own the property, they're just dividing it up into, even shares. What
I
they
thought
like
we
to
already
me.
did it. I thought we did that at the last meeting.
It started as
Okay. Yeah, that's what.
yeah, it was a conversation of last time.
I meant we approved both of them.
Oh, one at a time or both?
Well, if you're willing, I can apply the same motion to both.
I went,
I'm more than that, that's Jim's more.
I make the same motion.
For both.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, there's a resolution before you to place the Trail King trailers on the debt service schedule. So originally, I thought this was just something we did internally, by motion, so I called Rob Fortin, or contacted him, I should call him. And he said the best way to do it is by resolution, and then he followed that up with a statute that requires the resolution. So basically, all you're doing is a resolution to approve what you did last month by motion.
Oh, that wording would be?
The resolution itself.
Oh, is it down somewhere?
Yep, I'll read it to you quick. I'll skip the whereases because you already know those. So now therefore be resolved that the 2020 Trail King trailers cited herein are to be placed on the long-term debt service list within the road and bridge budget, and the auditor is instructed to make said payments according to the agreement so made and being adopted on the 7th day.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, I have a quick discussion for you on elections. So in the course of the last year, we talked about changing the number of polling places. And so what I did, to give you a visual representation of what I'm talking about, if I can find the right page, is I made these cool little maps for you. So this represents the original polling places, which have the red circles. So there's the Zell Church, the Fulton School, the Rehides Auditorium, which is not ADA compliant, the farmhouse at Doug Schultz's, Sunshine Bible Academy, and then of course there's St. Lawrence Town Hall, the courthouse here, and then the Methodist Church. What I want to do is just get your feeling on how you guys would feel if we went to a precinct here in Miller. And if I talk to somebody like in the neighborhood of Jim Mocker, I'll talk to Diane Beersley about it, and then Sunshine Bible. So basically what these circles represent is the radius around each of those three polling places, which covers the bulk of the county. And it's a 15-mile trip.
The middle circle is Center One, Miller, City of.
The blue circles.
The blue circles represent if we put all three along Highway 45, and then the green one is if we have it at Monkers.
Okay, and that would mean all of South Kent County would vote at
Sunshine Bible.
Okay, and how many polling places are in all of South Kent County?
We have 8 precincts total, and there's 1 for South Kent.
So they wouldn't be served any worse under these circumstances?
No, but for example, we have precinct 6, which runs basically along the majority of the St. Lawrence zip code. And those people travel, so if you're Dennis and Gloria Keck have to drive to St. Lawrence, Fire Hall.
Wow, that's a long way.
Yeah, when they could be driving to Sunshine.
Yeah.
The next portion of this is what they, on the agenda, it's called this, I'm gonna go look it up, make sure I don't say it wrong. No-link poll pads. What a no-link poll pad is instead of having a paper book that everybody gets wrote, each polling place has an iPad. And it's a living poll pad. So if Jim Eschenbaum happens to be on his way home from Fulton, he's like, oh crap, poll's gonna vote, I'm never gonna make it. He could vote in the northern precinct. Because this live poll pad allows him, he can check in there, and the other two will see that he checked in at home.
You still have to cast a ballot in whatever manner is required at that polling place, perhaps a paper ballot.
Because
You can't
of
vote
this-
online.
Nope,
Okay.
nope, it has nothing to do with
Okay.
voting online. Quite honestly, I don't see that coming to South Dakota.
I don't either.
So what it means is, he's not obligated to vote here. So what it means for, and I hope they're not offended by this, but like Vanderwerf's drive from the north edge of the golf course to Poland to vote, when they could simply drive to Miller. The people from the colony would drive to Rehides, now they can drive to SBA, or if they happen to be in Miller. So I mean, what it does is it basically unchains you. You're not stuck to one polling place. You can simply vote anywhere. So what Highmore did, Hyde County, they have a vote center, and so does Beagle County, in the center of the county. It's in Highmore, and it's at the arena in here. And all of these people come and vote in one spot. Well, I don't want to do that, because we got these transportation issues.
How would you ever figure out how to lay in polling place supplies if you don't know how many people are gonna come and vote?
Well, that's the other benefit. If we can do this, we, as the hub, are only 11 miles from the polling place and 0 from the ones here in town. And so if I needed to run supplies at Sunshine Bible or the Monters, it's a 10-minute trip. Right now, if I go to Zell, it's a 40-minute trip.
So if it's 200 people for some reason say they're gonna vote in a district or in one place where they don't normally, all you have to do is run whatever supplies are needed to that location, and there'll never be 200. There might be 10.
Right.
Okay.
The other advantage of doing this is instead of ordering separate ballots for separate precincts, we have one ballot. One ballot style. We have two parties, but we only have one ballot style. Because we don't have to take into account. Because when, like, let's say that there's a commissioner race, the people at the poll will know that Craig is a voter, needs to vote in that commissioner race, regardless of where he shows up.
What's the tool cost here, like if we, how many, like 5 iPads or what?
Well, we would buy 4. So we'd have 3 that are being used, and the 4th one's up here for people that go in person. And a backup, and they're $1,400 a piece. So the iPad themselves is $900, so we're paying $500 for
These are
the
portable.
No, that's the shitty part.
You gotta have a.
It has to be dedicated to elections, they don't let you use it for anything else.
Okay.
The internet connection has to be secure, so I can't use Sunshine's Wi-Fi. I would get a little, rent a hotspot for the day.
Will you say that thing about the ballot one more time? I didn't quite absorb all of it. How does that change the ballot? You're gonna go to one ballot that's uniform for all polling places?
Yep, for the whole county.
Okay, so if there isn't a county commissioner race way over in this part of the county, but there is down there, those people up there are gonna have that on their ballot.
They'll get their instruction.
Okay,
You don't.
have they spoiled their ballot if they accidentally voted that?
No, because the machine will read the ballot and know that it's invalid. That particular race doesn't belong to that person.
Okay.
So the other thing that it does is you show up, you give your ID, the iPad scans your ID, and it gives you a barcode that you use basically like a voter card, so to speak. And then that is what you take with you to the machine, and it presents the ballot that
You put that in, and you're only gonna see what that code says you should see.
Yeah. So the other thing, even if we just reduce the number of polling places, in there you saw a maintenance contract, I have all these electronic machines for handicapped people. I get rid of more than half of them. There's $295 in service fees every year, whether we use them or not, just to keep things up to date. So there's other savings.
How tried true is this iPhone system?
Well, right now, the state ran several pilots across the state and the counties that did it, but it was bad. The voters thought it was bad, we got really good feedback on it. My number one complaint from people is when they have to travel too far. You know, they'll come in, they'll vote here, and they'll say, I don't know why I got here 22 miles to vote with them. And they'll line up from the polling place. But like here in town, we run the courthouse and the church, and I've already talked to Keisha about just doing both of those at the community center. So that means less staff as well.
Which is getting to be a big thing. I know I use it like that all the time. And I can work things on, I can do everything on. But certain remote places, that they should work perfect. And I got a hotspot on my phone, I also got Polymer in my iPad, which has got a hotspot on it. And a lot of times, I gotta log on to people's houses.
Right.
To make everything right. What's the problem when you're in a municipality, and you can get online with it, and that should make it pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Sunshine's gonna work, because I know that area is.
It's not the greatest.
So in that case, we
But if
might
you're on the
get an outside antenna for it or something.
they have a machine to pick up off the Sunshine.
We will not run it. It has to meet
Dedicated.
this encryption code to guarantee security.
That's all.
So if this interests you, then I would do more. If it doesn't interest you, because you guys get to make the decision.
I think we should, I'm interested.
Sure seems reasonable.
Because the guy that does this is willing to come here and talk to you about the poll books and the benefits of it, and you can ask him any kind of security questions and all that.
I'm kind of interested in less polling places. The electronic part of that. That's cool about it.
There are a lot of people nationwide asking for paper ballots and humans counting again. And that's possible here in Dan County. There's a lot of areas that it's just not feasible that they can count those ballots by hand. But,
Everybody would have a ballot in hand with this thing.
Yes, we can.
I still gotta do it.
We still have a ballot hand with this thing, it's just location and signing in.
It's basically just, it's a unified area, so you, my understanding is so that if Jim votes up at Rogers, then it shows him as voting. Right. If someone comes down to wherever, and he shows up down in the south again, it's another vote, and then Rogers.
No, you don't.
It won't issue him a ballot. You won't get a ballot.
The machine will say, this guy is going.
But he'll turn his ballot in up there, that's the numbers.
That's the only thing I've doing is
But that's what it's.
keeping everything.
And it's square, and it's only the poll book. It has no other function with the election.
Right.
We'll figure that out. That's what confuses me a little bit, because say there's three of us all on for reelection this year. So we're all three going to be on the same ballot if it was ballot uniform, and it'll be determined. You were saying this will determine it only let me, because I'm from.
That's what they want. Right.
Vote for myself, it won't let me vote for one of the other guys.
That sounds a little confusing, doesn't it?
Well, no,
You probably don't see
take
six
yourself-
commissioner names there.
Take yourself out of it.
I'm in another district, but I'm voting in another district.
And you can do that. Because the code is gonna give you the ballot for your district. You won't, okay, I travel to your
You'll
district.
still have a paper ballot.
Yes, but
With
it's still,
everybody's name on
no, it won't have everybody's name.
Well, it will. It'll just have the instructions, just like.
Well, then that person, if it's instructed, that you could vote.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
when it reads the ballot, it'll say, Jim Rogers wasn't eligible to vote on this. Great.
right, but he voted, he'll have a spoiled ballot.
Theoretically, you should. I need to find that out for sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is it should tell you the minute you're voting that you can't do that.
Because what it used to do, like.
Because otherwise you're gonna have people vote, because not gonna know.
Or else it'll say, this person is, or this ballot is selected for all the district one.
Right. Because right now, the ballots, it used to be if you wrote anywhere on that ballot except for anything, almost every rejected.
Yeah, because you
Now it's-
identified it.
Right now, that's no longer the case. It literally reads those hash marks and knows where each one of those circles is located and will read only that area. So it ignores, if you spill coffee on it, it'll ignore it. Unless you do it in one color, I can't remember what it was.
I guess I thought when it issued, if it took my, because you gotta give them your driver's license, and that has your address on it, so that's gonna know what district you're supposed to vote in. I thought the ballot, what they showed me was the ballot you're gonna get is only gonna be for the people you vote for. It's not gonna have,
I'll double check.
it's not gonna have all three of us on my ballot, or I think it's hard using me as I'm a person that's from my district, goes to, we'll say if we use Sunshine Fire, goes down to Sunshine Fire. Now, they're not in my district anymore, but with their driver's license, what I got from the guy, what I was talking to, he said, you're only gonna see what you can vote on in your district.
That's what I remember.
You're not gonna see everybody that's on the ballot on every district. Because if that's on there, there's gonna be the confusing, there's gonna be people who vote the wrong.
Right, and they may not vote on the one they could.
Right.
Just because they're
They might
confused.
vote for three different commissioners.
Right.
They might be voting for one.
Well, if you guys are interested, I would invite him to come talk.
We can talk to him. Yeah, I think we should talk to him, just to see, everything's a moving target.
Yes.
You gotta look at it.
And then as far as redoing the number of polling places, that's done by resolution. And so you can just think about that, and we can talk about it.
We're a long, narrow county, that ain't the worst idea.
So what's your idea? You're gonna have three districts then? You're gonna go towards?
Polling place.
Polling
Polling
places.
places.
That's the three blue circles.
Yeah,
Three blues.
What's the green circle?
the green circle is by adding markers.
What's the center six on that?
That's the
That's
center of that
the
circle.
Zell Church, and the red circle
So where
represents
would
the 10 mile
your,
radius.
okay, if you did the three you're talking, Miller would naturally be one.
would be the middle one.
Yeah.
You're thinking Sunshine Bio would be the lower, the southern.
Yeah.
Where are you putting the?
Well, just in my conversation with Diane Monter, she's like, yeah, we would be willing to look at that. Because they have that shop off to the side of the house there. Because there's certain things that has to be handicap accessible,
Right.
which they're places you can get in and out. It has a restaurant accessible to it. Because I even thought about like Rogers and Ben site there in their office. But then, you know, at one time we used the North Highway shop, where there's no restroom there. That sounds like diesel fuel. So really what it is having those two up there, the Polo and the Zell one. The Zell one really, because it impacts such a small area of Hand County.
Yeah, because there's people south of me go to Polo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we hear, like people that come in and vote early in person.
But you did three of them right down the middle, you know,
That's what it's all about.
not as good as you could do. Well, that is simple, I think, a lot. Do it, and look at the number of people that you eliminated on trying to find enough people that actually run polling places.
Right.
Why is it that all three of those potential polling places, Monkers, Miller, wherever, and Sunshine, all three of those are in one blue circle?
Actually, they're not. You just see one blue circle. So like, my finger here is circling this
I
one.
can't see what you're doing. Can you do it up there?
Yep, if you look, you can see them, they're stacked. The blue logo.
So this is the Sunshine Bible Academy 15-mile radius.
Yeah.
And then this is the Miller, which would be the community center.
And it takes in all three of those places.
Yep. And St. Lawrence.
That's all I'm saying.
So no St. Lawrence,
Like three
no
little
Miller and
planned
no
together.
church.
So what is Hyde County, they all got, they got what I want, everybody.
Yep.
So, and they're virtually, they're just ain't as narrow, they're narrower, but they lengthwise. Same length. And they have one.
There's one polling place in Hyde County.
In Highmore, at the auditorium.
For the whole county.
For the whole
It's probably like 35 miles up to like Myers, up there in the country.
Yeah.
Think how much money they save doing that.
Well, you
know.
But the
You're just
flip side
passing
is,
people
Yes,
with
you
it.
are.
You're just passing it on to them.
right.
Okay, no, let's look at that polling place deal.
Yeah, so if you went with 3 polling places, then you could take like this precincts that are like in your area, and you can create a different precinct out of that. And so that reduces your expense even more, because then you're dealing with different file systems. If you do have to have separate ballots.
What does it cost us for an election board at a polling place for one day?
About $500. If you include the rent,
$1,000.
because we pay rent to those places.
Yeah.
See, and what really started my mind thinking is Reed Heights, because there's the stairs, and there's no easy way to circumvent the stairs. But then there's not another really good place, because the Legion closed and is now the bar. And I'm not opposed to having a precinct in the bar, but I'm not in favor of having a precinct in the bar.
You're not opposed to it, but you don't.
No, if I was a voter, I wouldn't mind that. I'd go over and vote and have a burger and a taco and whatever else, but it's really not an appropriate place for that.
Yeah, I don't know, when you got a private home, because you just never know the personality and the family ties and all that stuff.
Well, think of it. Doug Schultz has all those people go to his house. One of them trips and hits their head on the cement. That's a lot of exposure for him personally.
But like for Monkers too, I mean.
Yeah.
You know.
Was there an issue with Rogers' office up there?
No, the only problem is on the November election, I'll be kind of busy. So,
Somebody ran over by
Truck traffic.
Rogers grain storage up there.
I can't tell you, there were counties that rented motorhomes, or not motorhomes, but campers for the RVs. Yeah, they just put a word out saying you want to rent your camper for the day. And people were like, yeah. And it was a self-contained,
Our steps there.
But then, yeah, I was gonna say.
well, that is a big problem there,
And then some stuff.
Right.
Good way to get her.
And the restrooms are terrible.
If we rented Monkers garage for the day for $10, then would it become a county liability in that building?
No.
I can't have nothing on our insurance.
I could find out. if we do.
Well, I think if we're there, even if we use Doug Schultz, then I'll look into that, to see if the county can take possession of that. Exactly.
Okay, residents, I mean, you know, call that
Right.
residents.
Yeah, but anytime we invade a residency and use it for the county business, we should be taking on the county liability for that situation.
Yeah, start benefit, we'll pay her.
Anyway, can we go on here?
Yep, okay, so in asset management, what I wanna talk about here quick is, we've been dealing with inventories, and like Arlen was talking about. Well, by statute, the inventories are due by the end of the year, but I'll be honest with you, I'm having trouble with some of the departments turning in their inventories, but I just keep pushing. But what I've noticed is that the inventory, for lack of better words, is kind of a shipwreck. So, we're working pretty hard on that, so like, I spend time with each department, and we literally go through it and get rid of the shit that isn't supposed to be there anymore. We talked about appointing 3 people, so they have to be property owners. And so quite honestly, like Jamie has that desk she wants to sell. What we would do is provide you with a list of eligible appraisers, property owners. We could do it in the building, we could include one of you, Greg's only a couple blocks away, Jim's not much further. So it could be a blend of department heads, commissioners, we could make it employees, we could pull people out of the community.
Yeah, we get this stuff all centrally located, so we can do it one table, so.
You can, the only problem is there's no central storage area for us to do it. I mean, we put it in the assembly room, but then when they need the assembly room, it's always been
No, I'm thinking like a comic shop or shed or something. Just start moving stuff out.
Actually, most of it is small enough. The desk is probably the largest, but it would be like, well, put an ad in the paper, and it's like $5. You gotta haul it the day you buy it. Otherwise-
Is it our, should we do something? Can we do it like to play the deck and have an auction it?
I spoke to Clayton, and he was interested for a while, but then he lost interest in it. Just don't think he saw his profit enough to be selling all these smaller items.
How about one day deal at the community center, that we rent the community center, everything.
Just have a flea market?
Yep, everything goes over there, we appraise it out at whatever, when it's
Yeah, we can do that.
$1,000, you buy it that day, you don't buy it that day, there's a rubble site that I know is open.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
That way we get it moved out of the building, because once it's out of the building, it won't come back. And then once it's sitting there, people will look at it and they know we're serious too.
Exactly.
You know, if it has no value, it's for short trips to the other side, we could even have our man come down, pick it up, take it out there himself. If you wish for it. What do you think of that idea? Unless somebody else.
Might cost more to rent it than we can get out.
That's what I'm
Well, that's all right, but a weekday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon, everybody has their stuff over there.
Why don't we call it all off the Rumble site and have the auction there?
There you go.
Good, take care of it in, carrying it out.
Yeah.
But most of this stuff's pretty little, like stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be some
Ballot boxes and stuff
ballot
like that.
boxes, but I think people will buy them if they were sitting there. And we tell them they're for sale that day.
Right?
And then whatever gets carried out, it'll be just like every other auction, you don't have to all do it.
I like it.
I don't know, but maybe we got a building of our own we can go to. It's just that one.
Well, like I said, even this building, if we knew that the time frame was, we're afraid to do it in the assembly room.
Yeah.
Or does the library could just put their stuff in there?
Most of it should be right down in the entryway, once the Christmas trees are gone.
Yeah.
Do it right there.
Right. I
But
like it.
pick out one afternoon, all
Countywide revenue sale.
right. Reduction in inventory.
It's got a ring to it.
That's got a ring to it.
I like that.
Reduction in inventory, so.
All right, so moving into welfare. Okay. Jan, sorry, but you can't see these.
No problem. I'm not looking.
This is the applicant. There's 3 separate ones there. Actually, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 there. So I made this chart for your benefits that you wouldn't necessarily have to try and decode all of that. So there's 4 different case numbers that represents me receiving a notice of hospitalization. So first column is the case number, second column shows the amount that was provided to me on the notice of hospitalization.
That was their estimate of what the total might be.
They have to send that within 15 days. Then they produce a bill. And this is the bill like you and I are accustomed to when we go to the doctor. So you can see the difference between the notice amount versus the bill. The UB4 is a standardized form used for medical coding. And that represents a more intensive look at what the costs are. So you can see that we went from a total of 18, we went up to 20,200, then it dropped back down to 19,500. And then the hospital submits a request for payment. So this is after they've made the application for relief, and they've taken whatever cuts they're willing to take, and then they send this request. So that original UB04 goes from 19,500 to $6,700. Okay, so you can see the age on these. There's 3 of them from 2019, 1 from 2020. The nice folks at the business office here in Regional Medical Center and I, we had several conversations about this particular client. And finally, the other day, I just said to her, I'm like, what would it take just to settle it? And she's like, 50% of the requested amount. And that's where the $3,384.54
I think
comes
we should
from.
jump on it. I think that's fantastic.
I agree too.
I move that we accept and pay it.
Yep, I'll second that. Any of these we can get settled.
I have one other request, though, and I don't think it's unreasonable. You know, if they can't show us proof of insurance, they should at least be able to show us proof they tried to.
Well, that's the age-old argument. We've had it this table a number of times.
But if they won't even go in and sign up, I mean, if they sign up and the volunteer turns them down, and says, no, you're not eligible. All Americans eligible, you are not eligible. Okay.
But that won't stop hearing trying to collect from us, because under the law, we're responsible if they can't. And if they can't, just because they're lazy or proud or for whatever reason, they don't apply for benefits that they might be eligible for, and instead are going to rely on Kent County to pay their bill. Distinction as to the reasons they can't pay. There isn't. We don't have it in our application. We don't say it.
Last resort. And if there was one other place that they could sign up and they were part of that, whether they got paid, even after the fact. And the only other thing I would do, qualify, and if you guys still feel willing to write them a check, go ahead and write it, but at least they'd be signed up. Now, maybe next time we'll have to.
The problem is, it isn't here in Regional. The problem, these people didn't sign up if they were eligible. If they had been eligible.
We know this person
Didn't
has
sign up.
insurance
Should
needs.
be plenty there. Still on their lives.
This is my problem either.
It is by law. We have to pay.
So still no
If
insurance.
we have to pay, we just well pay the lowest.
Not eligible.
If he's eligible for insurance, why should we let him send him?
Okay, if he's eligible for insurance, fine, you can go that route.
Well, if I know.
But it doesn't say anywhere in the law that he has to before we're responsible.
Well, let's just write a check from all.
That's what I'm saying. That's the state, that's the term right now. Because we don't.
But legally, can we make some? You will. There you go.
He'll call you on the phone and he will walk you through it.
She says that she knows an agent who services them who's willing to help people go through the portal.
Yeah.
So that would
So
be one
he's in my
excuse
paper,
out of the way.
the professional director, Jeff Lindy, and he'll get on the phone with you, and he'll do a conference call with the marketplace thing, whenever it's called, and volunteer thing, and he will walk you through the process, and he'll tell you, this is a good deal. Wait a minute, we can get this a little lower, let's look at that one, this is a good policy, this is a bad policy. And he'll explain to you what like the gold covers and the silver covers and all that kind of stuff. And that is one of the services that he provides through, and it's a very select. And it's who his company is, and he's very good. Not that I'm trying to get people to go out of town, but nobody in town would help, he did.
I just want to finish my discussion on this. I really, I can see paying this bill, they're already on the books, these people have negotiated down, but I see nowhere that stops them just to come back.
I think you're right. incentive not to.
So I think, you know, we can rely on hospital and Bear over here, and any of the rest of them, service company, should at least take the time to help them get signed up.
You remember when we posed that question to the administrator of the hospital? Why isn't the hospital interested in establishing an office that people can come in, visit, and apply for Obamacare? Remember that? Do you remember his response?
They would get their bill paid at a higher level than what we're proposing to pay here.
Except that we own it.
Yeah, they spend all afternoon with them negotiating it now before they even turn it in, they spend that time with them. Why wouldn't they spend a little keyboard time with them? I'm not trying to be belligerent about this, and I know I got a motion and a second on the floor, but I just want to discuss this in front of God, and we start giving them up.
I think you're 100% right, except for when it comes to the law.
Well,
I think under circumstances, we have to pay.
we had a president named Mr. Obama that made it the law that everybody signs up for health insurance. He even put a penalty on it that got repealed back off, but the law still stands.
When,
That they sign up.
when that changed, the state should have said, okay, the counties are no more responsible because everybody's eligible.
Yeah. And
But the wording,
Why have we not changed that in the state? This needs to,
the wording of last resort, I think covers that. Because if there's any other resort like Obamacare, and they haven't tried that yet, they haven't got.
Well,
last resort.
we bandy about the phrase of last resort, or the pair of last resort, but you can't point to a statute that says that. You can only point to a statute that says that the county is responsible if somebody's a citizen of the county and can't pay.
Yeah, they've
That's all it
exhausted
says.
all other means, but there's no litmus test to determine if they're
Right.
exhausted.
They really did it.
Yeah, they exhausted all of it.
Make sure all you have to do is say it, so.
Anyway, we got a
So you gotta go
motion,
beg your relatives or anything else on
we got a motion and a second on the floor to pay the 3384.53, is that correct?
Yep.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
There, so I'll take those back. Okay, on the board, on the TV, is the current summary of what we're looking at. So the bottom line numbers, we're gonna change just simply because of what just took place, but just in this last 2 months. So if you wanna decode my case numbers, it's the year, the month, the date, and then if I receive more than one, I have to pick which one comes before the other.
I've lost track of you, Doug, do we have that in this package?
Nope, it's up here because it's too large. So basically what you're looking at is if we go back to July, you can see we got noticed on 20,000, 50,000, 50,000, 60,000, 50,000, 200,000. So I got one more before or after I printed this for $50,000 more. And so again, these are just the notices. These are the initial estimates that they are required to send by law to us within 15 days of the hospitalization. And so the second column is actually what they've applied for. So you can see that the application amounts, there's a lot of dead space in there, but that's because they haven't processed all their stuff. And so, I don't know if you guys knew this, I vicariously became the president of the Welfare Association at our annual conference, because the last one left, but, so we've been working with some legislators because they're required to give us notice in 15 days, but it doesn't set a statute of limitations on how long they have to go after these. Yep. And so what it does, like I just saw Turner County's worksheet like this, and it is way worse than ours. I mean, it's, their 2 years blows ours out of the water. But the problem we have is that a hospital can sit on this. Well, how do we budget for that? How do we plan for that? There's really no way to make any kind of intelligent estimate on what these are gonna turn into. And so I've spoken to 6 different legislators, and so far all but one are like, yeah, that needs to change. There needs to be some limitation on how long counties have to wait to find out what they're gonna apply. So if we can get that switched, that would be big. There's a discussion about expanding Medicaid. Like one of them told me, yes, you can expand Medicaid, it'll pick up the majority of these people.
Might be on the ballot next year.
Correct. But we, the taxpayers, still have to pay. So
Someone
how will
someone
it
gotta
be paid?
pay.
Right. So will it be paid through a personal income tax? Will it be paid through an increase in sales tax? So that particular legislator is like, you always gotta remember, the money comes from somewhere. And so you gotta pick it. But if they do successfully expand Medicaid, the bulk of these will disappear from us. Because these people will become eligible. So like the lady from Department of Health said, right now, to get Medicaid, you have to have a child in the home. So we have a lot of legitimately indigent people who live solo. They don't have children anymore. They don't qualify for that. So what I do personally is I talk to them about WIC, if they have kids. I talk to them about the Ministerial Association. I mean, I know a guy that lives in a trailer. He doesn't even live in his house because it's uninhabitable. I know him too. But there's other programs out there. And so like on this last one that you don't see here, I changed my letter and I explained to him that you should start by calling, in this case, Avera McKenna, and checking into their payment plan. Because I've talked to some of these people and they received discounts just because they were willing to spend time in the business office visiting with these people. We're willing to set up a plan, even if it's through a wage assignment instead of a garnishment, or whatever it might be. So just keep pushing.
I talked to Doug about letter of refusal from Obamacare. Part of the portfolio for us to pay. And if they would apply for Obamacare, it's legitimate, like your Medicaid deal or whatever, refuses it, they're not. So then they fall under no man's zone. They have no money, they don't qualify for Obamacare, even though everybody else does. And then they're legit on this list, you're in their county resident. But if they qualify for Obamacare, and for $47 a month, they can have it. I'm all for paying the $47 a month for them, $15.5 million. Does that make any sense?
Attention, how long you pay it, forever?
Huh? You better pay $500,000.
Well, if someone's 20, they would be 70, 50 years.
And hopefully somewhere along the way.
Potentially. I mean, there'd have to be some rules to it.
Either that or look at the fact that potentially you may be able not afford to have it on the hospital. If the thing keeps going the way it's went the last 10 years. You know, it used to be just $2,500 here or $7,500. Now they're $250,000, $500,000, $300,000. Well, you get enough of them on the books. And Mr. Rivera over here, maybe we can't have you here no more. It's just that some of these are getting astronomical.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, he's telling me about some other cancer cases that have come up in the deal. We all know what them can be like. My son went through that. That guy was working for a worldwide company when it happened. You know? Or he'd been broke the rest of his life. He even took the county down for what it cost. You know, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
So I'm just looking into the future, you know, the time to put stipulations on is when they're not laying in front of you, you know. Make it part of your procedure, you know, that, you know, at least you can apply.
I think whoever was Jim, I think you said, the state legislature has not taken off the books the responsibility for the payment of those bills. And they have not predicated the necessity for payment upon somebody exhausting all other possibilities, including Obamacare in the first place. They don't, that's not what the statute says.
Mm-hmm.
So, if theoretically, anybody can qualify for Obamacare, all these bills could be paid, they would apply for Obamacare. You think the legislature, in its wisdom, would say, we don't need that law anymore that forces counties to pay. Wouldn't you? They haven't.
We hope so.
They have not done it. So it's still our responsibility.
They can legitimately pass the burden to the hospitals to make sure that person's insured when they check in. And if
That's the first thing they ask.
they'll fill out the application,
Sometimes. I've discovered that sometimes that conversation doesn't happen.
And I also know for a fact that
Well, it doesn't in an emergency, we don't, I don't think.
Emergency room, in the first place they take them is that office and ask them when they release them if they're capable of paying the bill, and if they ain't, they start marking the bill down right away, what's possible and what ain't, And they got time to do that, there's some time to look at other elements. And I'm not saying it can rewrite legislation, I'm not saying that, I just think we need to make people aware of everything, they all do. At some point, when they get them, just for their, you gotta hope they go away, hope and a prayer, I guess, is a good way to go.
Do you think these services are profitable generally?
Our hospital over here says they only collect 65%, makes it profit.
If they've written it down from 18 to 3, there must be some profit in providing medical services in America today.
Well, that's what I thought, that's what our hospital, were you here?
You are joking, man.
No.
Were you here on the meeting?
Well, you think the bill that you get from the hospital just barely covers all?
No, I'm saying it's fantastically profitable.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Unbelievably profitable.
Well, you
Because some of them start getting.
I what?
You were sitting right there when I asked the business manager from the variance, you mean you only collect 65%, you still see profit? Boy, that's unbelievable, my goodness. If only 65% of my calves still have money dead in the woods, and if only grow a crop on 65% of your acres, you're dead in the woods. But you can run a business at a 65% collection rate, you're exactly, there's at least money there.
Come on, really 7 times.
Anyway, we beat that horse to death, we're gonna pay that one?
Yep.
Go ahead,
Yep.
and I really wish we passed it.
I'm going to-
Did we?
Yeah,
And I'll do that.
I abstained from voting on that.
Do you want
After
me,
my rant.
do you want me to let you abstain?
Huh?
You want me to put that that you-
What amazes me is I've talked to county commissioners from several counties, and some of them, when I bring up indigent healthcare, they're like, oh, God, it's such an issue. And then the next county you talk to, they're like, we don't ever get one.
Grant,
We don't ever even hear of one.
not Grant County.
Yeah.
What if you don't
Way
have?
up in the northwest corner. You,
Robert State.
not the other one. Northwest.
Me?
Harding?
Oh,
Harding, 0. For the last 2 years.
Do they have any hospital?
Mead,
I don't know.
I don't think.
You gotta have a hospital. Mead does, Mead's got a couple.
Well, you gotta have a hospital.
Harding is last in COVID too, I think. Must be a
There's like 670 residents there.
small population, widely dispersed.
Yeah.
Where do we gotta go from here?
Okay, bottom of the page. I talked to you about the tax levy for the construction or improvement of buildings. The official word from Wendy, that property taxes, here it is that it's not an additional tax, despite the statute saying an additional tax. It does count towards total levy, and in order to add this, it would be an opt-out.
Hope we have to.
Yep.
Unless they pass, the legislature passes it to let us do it.
Yes.
Because they got this which is in the works, they've got this exact thing in the works.
Okay, so I think I've covered everything. The building permits are at the end. We need to talk about the last meeting of the month. My recommendation for you is to look at 28th of December, but ultimately it's your guys' decision.
What day of the week is that?
It is a Tuesday.
Is that close enough to the end?
Yes. Because what we would do is because the 31st would be our first holiday moved back. And it would be up to you guys if you decided to give a half a day on the 30th. So we would have payroll in here. We would ask for timesheets ahead of time. But then we would have bills due here, so we would have,
So if it works for you, it works for me.
yep.
I mean,
And the only thing that I know of is because we did the rural infrastructure thing, we paid the engineer. I have to find out if it requires a full-blown supplement hearing or it's just a transfer because the program came to us in 2021. If we don't have to have that, I don't think we're looking at any supplement at the end. We might have a couple transfers for contingency, but honestly, I think this is gonna be a pretty short meeting.
you'll have the warrants and everything and take it out.
Yep.
Works for you, works for me.
Do you have a time? Do you wanna do one? Do you wanna do two?
We gotta do one because it gets dark so early.
Yes, it's
The basketball game playing in this day.
okay, so the 28th at 1 o'clock. Do you guys, 1 o'clock, 2? Oh,
Basketball game playing.
Oh, there's 3 or 4 of us.
you want to participate by phone? Drive down the road?
That'd be convenient, so I won't figure something out.
If there's 3 or 4 of us, they ain't gonna act on that much stuff anyway.
No, just bills.
Bills and maybe the stuff.
Do you guys have any inclination about the holidays? It would be entirely up to you, unless the governor steps in and gives half a day on the 23rd. Basically, I'm just asking if you're gonna move the holidays this way, or just apply the Christmas holiday to the 24th and the 1st to.
What would we normally do under these circumstances?
Well, if it wasn't on a Saturday, we would have the eve and the holiday.
You mean, so for Christmas, nobody's getting any time off at all? The way it
For
is?
Christmas, they get Friday, which is normally Christmas Eve.
Okay.
So it's, the question is whether or not you want to do Christmas Eve on the 23rd, or just leave it the way it is, or if you want to do anything with New Year's.
They got the whole day of the 24th off, that's good.
That's how it is right now.
Yeah,
It would be entirely to you
I
guys.
don't think we're even back into the 23rd.
No, I don't.
Same way with New Year's.
Okay.
They will go Friday and New Year's Eve off.
Do you, unless through, and business wise, would it make any sense to do like the 3rd instead of the 31st?
The only problem I have there is extending a holiday into New Year. We ran into that last year with payroll. Yep, so it'll just be the 24th and the 31st. And what else do I have? Jim Eschenbaum has a work period request to discuss healthcare and county attorney meeting, which is on the top of page 3.
The, Commissioners Healthcare, or Commissioners Health Insurance, I think we put a deadline of, we changed it to February, whatever. I would like to, myself, or if we can, like to see this thing get done so we don't get to February and then we drag it out after that. This is not about the commissioners being on health insurance, it's only about whether the county is paying, the commissioner is paying, or whether we're splitting it. And, I'd like to get this thing put behind us and clarified. The minutes of the meeting, as we approved them, say it's a viable option. That is probably the biggest question, is that viable option part of the minutes of that meeting. I guess I would ask Jim, do you think that viable option was proper wording? Because I've listened back to the meeting and you can't hear the audio. Do you think you said viable option? Do you think you said viable option? Whichever it is you said, we still need to clarify.
I don't know if I said either, I thought I said an option to board members. And, I probably should have added under what circumstances or whatever, but I don't remember seeing either one of them words, I just said option. Board members to be able to vote on. I think that's what I mean, that's the way I remember it. So, if, this board or anyone else wants to do something other, they'll have to be by motion and agreed by a majority vote.
Well, my last option was to go by the wording of the minutes, and that died for lack of second. If anybody else wants to make a motion or throw input into whether we're gonna have this percentage, county's gonna pay for it, whatever, but we still need to clarify, because it's been brought up that we have a difference in the fact that the minutes say it's a viable option, and we are not paying for commissioner's insurance for anybody that decides to be on it, so. It's a matter of clarification, not a matter of whether we can be on county insurance, we just need to clarify payment. It doesn't seem to go away, so.
If I could question, I apologize, what do the minutes say specifically? Does it say viable, or does it say viable? I'm sorry.
It's printed viable, B-U-I-A-B-L-E. You have people coming to you with this question.
I've got a couple of.
Because they come to
kind
me
of writing me
about
about it, and a couple of my constituents are kind of writing me about it, and they want to clarify it, and I'm not doing my job if I don't relay their voice, so.
What is the definition?
And that's what I do, I relay them to him because they're his constituents.
What is the definition of viable? Anybody
That you
who's in on Facebook and stuff?
Viable or
Purchase.
viable?
What is the definition of DUI? ABO?
Purchasable,
Purchase.
available?
That's my, so that, you know, Facebook or whoever knows what that word means.
I'm just guilty of not reading the minutes well enough back. I wrote that, so.
Well,
Correct.
we made, we've obviously, I guess, well, no, we only dropped the ball once, we maybe didn't read the minutes close enough. If your intent was for the county to provide health insurance for commissioners, I got no problem with that, as long as we clarify it to them. If basically we're going to, I don't know if it's possible, but amend our minutes or clarify that the minutes were approved without
Making that
clarification that. What was it your intention for the county to provide health insurance?
I wish I would have made the motion the same, available to the same as any other employee in the county. I wish that's the way I would make the motion. Because then it would have fell under the guidelines of every same as every other employee. Then we'd be talking about what the correct percentage is. But I didn't. So I'm guilty of just saying available. We got printed viable, so that's the way it is. But that was my intent, to be eligible the same as any other employee. Well, we all know the guidelines are any other employee. The half-time employee, for half-time.
And then this picture would be on what kind of time are we?
Right. But I think we could have, at that time, we probably could have put a number on that, but that time went by. So, you know, I'll take that on me because I didn't word it correctly. But it's in writing, and very descriptive of how it is for employees.
In the absence of any limitation or restrictions placed on the availability of insurance to commissioners, it seems to me, it's obvious that it's 100%. Nobody limited it in any way.
Yeah. That's what it turned out. You know, I didn't object to it.
But we do have employees that are limited to how much of it we're gonna cover. You know, so it's.
The time restraint, the problem was they were.
Nothing was ever established in that area, so then you got to go on there. We discussed it a couple of times, but never did it. To me, it's 100% until we change it.
Yeah. That's what it seems to me. That's why I say, if somebody's gonna have to make a motion, it's gonna have to pass in a majority fashion. You have a change, that's what it is.
Well, we have already established the budget for next year. People are relying upon those budget decisions we've already made, so we can't move it for next year.
But I think the discussion earlier we had, if there's any changes to be made, it was changed at the time of sign up of insurance again.
Yes.
If that's when we made the changes that I had, That's when the change would have to be made, it can't be made midstream.
No, and I agree with you 100%.
So if you're gonna motion something to be changed, it'd be active on sign-up time. And next time. Yeah. That's what I would like to accept, because I'm not gonna do midstream. But I didn't come prepared to act on this today either, but I didn't know. So we're at that point, if we discussed on closer to the sign-up period, not now. Mr. Eschenbaum here believes it should be acted on sooner than that.
Well, we set a deadline in February, and I know how many times we end up kicking the can down the road, and I want to get February and still can't find a result.
When's our sign-up time from?
Our renewal there is September, end of August, beginning of September. But because we decided, you guys decided to put it out for bids, to let local people involved, we were gonna broadcast those bids in March.
And at that time, we need to know whether we're gonna,
Right. Include, exclude, or ratio.
so if we agreed we're gonna include, none of the problem, only kind of problem we have here is we think we need to not be 100%, that's what I hear from everybody else. I haven't had nobody call me. But if we were gonna change that, I guess we could change that now, but it won't be until then. But
Well, maybe we have a couple of months to think about it.
one thing I do agree with you, and that's, rehash. If the majority of the board feels like it should be different, I get different. If the majority don't feel like it should be different, they will.
I don't have any problem with the option, I guess, I don't know that I originally voted no for it, I guess if you want to offer it,
So did
it
I.
should be a percentage, I guess, of some kind of, so what that would be. But I agree, I don't think we should act on it before, I mean, kind of said we stick with it till the time.
Well, I would hope whoever made the motion would make it at time, and this is where we change it. But because that's only fair to all of our employees, we can call all of our employees on change in February. What we're doing, not, if we do that on approval at clearance time. But if you want to put this thing to bed, you can put it to bed.
Well, let's give it some thought, but like I said, I just don't want to get to February and then we're kicking the can down the road and start advertising, or putting it out that we want people to bid the health insurance, and now, if we're still leaving, like you said, if we're still leaving the commissioners on, which I highly recommend we do, that it really shouldn't make any difference to them. All they know for their bid is they know the commissioners can like leave it on. So if we really are, the question is really whether we're gonna consider ourselves full-time, and we do. We discussed that we're on call 24/7, but we've got other employees that work 20% or 30% or 40% or whatever. I don't think I could honestly say that I put in more than 10 hours a week, and if it is, it's because I'm long-winded when I get on the phone.
But at the same time, in the very seldom example, with one or two, I would say, would never be on that long time, that's because of their age, most of us are working for different companies. So really, kind of worrying if you only have one out of 5 on there. But everybody thinks of things different ways, and obviously you got some people in your district that
Well,
thinking it's right.
I got two that are hounding me, and I said I'm not doing my job if I don't represent their voice. So let's keep it on the agenda and try and get this thing resolved by February.
If you got a percentage, put it out there.
Pardon?
If you got a percentage, put it out there. I mean, that's the ultimate deal with everybody thing, and they either get voted down or it'll go through. I'm, like you said, I'm not in favor of kicking belongs.
If I'm to make a motion and I'm not afraid of another motion dying, I will motion that the commissioners pay 100% of the premium and as what the minutes say. They're still available to the county health insurance plan. But the minutes say that it's a viable option. I'll make a motion that the commissioners pay 100%. It's died once, it can die again. I've got no problem with that.
Will you put that out of the renewal time?
Yeah,
Because that's what we determine for all employees, what we're gonna pay, what
Yeah,
plan we're gonna put.
as of renewal time, yeah. We will pay it until renewal time, and after that, commissioners would pay their own health insurance, whatever the premium is.
I'm not following. You're saying we're gonna pay 100% until February. February, we'll reestablish and determine what percentage the commission should pay.
No, renewal time is,
Well, that's when our contract ends, and that's what I want a clarification on, so. If we put this out to bids in March, then somebody comes in and offers you a bargain you can't turn down, you can choose to terminate that other contract. Otherwise, you're stuck with September 1st as your contract. So I think maybe if you can think of the wording is when you solicit either a renewal or a new thing,
renewal whenever it is.
yeah, or the next purchase or however it is. Because I mean, conceivably, you could end up not having a bear on it when somebody says, you know what, we'll buy out your contract if you come to us in July. It's unlikely, but not impossible.
We'd be sued.
Yeah, unless they just bought it out, kind of like the phone contract. I don't know. I mean, I tried to get Dice to move our anniversary date, and they're like, no, can't do it.
Okay, remind me again, if our anniversary date is September, why are we making decisions in February? Why do we want?
Because we're gonna solicit bids, and honestly, it really takes that long to get all of that information gathered up.
How could they possibly bid something that far over the horizon? My God, we're.
Well, I don't think-
Inflation of 6.
I think they would start their research in March. We would put it out, advertise it, that we're looking for people to show interest.
Oh, and it's still
And
5
then-
on September. Okay.
There's a ton of numbers to crunch before they come up with that composite rate number for us.
We're just advertising and saying,
Yep,
that's when we want our numbers.
yep, and at that time, you would set the date of when those solicitations would be due.
Okay, now it makes sense.
That's the same time when we offer, whatever we're gonna offer to all of our employees, what our plans are, whatever we accept, if we're gonna stay with our tiered plan with that company or another company has a different proposal, that's when we renew that with all of our employees. And I don't think our board should be any different. But that's what you're saying.
So, if you want clarification to that motion, it would be to leave it as is until we renew or sign on with another policy. And then after that, the commissioners would pay 100% as per the minutes from that meeting, the wording of the minutes from that meeting.
You need that in there about the previous minutes?
Yes, because that's really what the question is about, is the wording of the minutes that we all approved.
Okay.
That's what keeps coming to me, is, so what is a viable option? That's where the question comes up.
Will this handling of this matter satisfy the people who are concerned about it in your district?
I'll tell them to come to the commission meeting and argue it themselves if they're not satisfied with our solution. I've actually asked them to come, but they're always busy. So, I mean, but I am relaying their voice, but I says, come and argue your point if you've got an issue, but.
Jim's got a motion on the floor.
Will you read it, please, Doug?
Commission bond move that the commission pay 100% of health insurance upon renewal / and then I'm missing that word that you used. Based on the original minutes, and then I would reference the date of those minutes as being a viable option. So I still have renewal in there, but I'm trying to think of,
If you want to participate, you're gonna have to pay 100%. That's what
I'm almost thinking it's like when our current one just expires. Isn't that leaves the door open for purchase or?
The commission pays 100%. Commissioner, not commission.
The commissioner, yes, the commissioner pays,
Commissioner.
yes, pays 100%.
if they want to participate.
Yeah,
Okay, I got it.
because then that aligns payment with what those minutes read, is it's a viable option. And if,
So he don't get no credit for working here.
What?
5% or 1% or 10%. I'm all right with the motion. I'm all right with that.
well, that's my motion, because that motion aligns with the wording of the minutes. Now, we let that motion die, and if somebody wants to make a motion at another percentage, I'm fine with that too.
I have no problem with that, because at time of renewal, we can act on it again,
Yeah.
if we would like to. And if I do it again at that time, I'll choose my words more.
Do you have an objection if I put the word in parentheses when our current policy expires? Renewal, parentheses, when the policy
I
expires?
don't think that's accurate. Is it not?
No. Because I feel like at that time, we negotiate that back with every employee we got.
Yeah.
We give them their choice of plans and tell them what we're gonna pay and what we're not gonna pay. Every year.
Okay, so you're saying the commission will pay until then.
Yes,
After that, the
Because-
commissioner.
the
Or
county will pay until then, after that. And the commissioner will pay 100% if we renegotiate it again then. And say that, basically, right, what my motion is right now is until renewal time, we don't do anything. If we hash this thing out again at renewal time, then so be it. But as of right now, my motion is to align payment with the wording of the minutes. In the wording of the minutes say viable, that's what the big question really is what's viable? And if we got the minutes wrong and we approved them, without proofreading good enough, then that's on us.
That's the only thing I agree with you on. So I think it's our word was not a minute. Carry to tell us that, rehash it. If we decide to do something at renewal time, then we'll reword it. And that, all we're doing to me is forcing them to look at it at renewal time. And I have approval of that.
We
I'm not
do,
gonna be bound by 100% at this point. I don't want somebody throwing that in my face in September.
No, that's like that.
Well, that is the interesting thing about a motion, it can be superseded later on.
Yeah, you don't, it's kind of look like a hip. but-
Yeah.
All right, do this, it don't matter. And I'm not gonna lose no sleep over it tonight.
I don't want to be bound by any percentage.
as hard as we try to correct wording of motions and try to avoid loopholes, we just miss the mark sometimes. And as much as we try to avoid these situations, we're in.
We're gonna put this to bed in the next 5 minutes here, I know that, so if you,
Is there a second?
Not yet.
the percentage, you'd like to do the offset here, whether where it's going to. If it had to be renegotiated at that time, that's exactly what's gonna happen anyway. So. That then just feels like it's adding an element to it, something to be added.
Well, I kind of think so. If this motion dies for lack of a second, I have a motion.
Yeah. Because that is my point, it should be worth 1% of my time, to be honest.
I will then withdraw my motion and,
Just like,
it,
because it's gonna die of lack of a second, in the next 30 seconds. If somebody else seconds it more.
Oh, okay.
Because we're gonna get by this thing without no other words. So in about 15 seconds, this is gonna die of lack of a second, so if somebody wants a second, they're gonna get off board.
T minus 10. All right.
I want to do that. If that's lack of a second, is there any other motions on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Hold on a second. Okay,
We still got another thing after this. So, go ahead.
I move that we go on record as supporting 100% payment by the county commission for this year's insurance contract, and that we revisit the issue and fully explore all of the options that are available to us in February.
No.
No, in September?
it's February, we're just going
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
publish.
Okay, in September.
you're,
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying
time of renewal.
if that renewal.
Then we're not bound by anything.
Then we'll determine what it's going to be for that one,
Or expiration.
or it's the
Renewal
or
of expiration.
Or if it gets bought out early, which is right.
Oh, at expiration, okay,
Renewal or expiration.
yeah.
Okay, please read your motion.
Jones moved to going on the record to pay 100% of insurance for commissioners.
Let's not say going on record, let's say clarifying the record.
Move to clarify the record to pay 100% of health insurance and revisit all available options upon renewal or expiration.
You say it.
And to revisit all available options
Including,
at renewal or expiration.
including assigning a percentage of premium obligation to the individual commissioner.
With the, commission.
Of assigning,
And that can range anywhere from 0 to 100%, so we got to cover it.
It could. I want people to know what those options are. They are from 0 to 100.
assigning a percentage of premium.
Premium payment responsibility to the commissioner purchasing. Commissioner to be covered for every department.
Okay,
You think you got her there?
I do.
I understand her.
I'll second that. That took a cookie, didn't it?
Any other discussion on that? Now, the way this is worded to me, that we will act on this at renewal time.
But
What the percentage will be for.
and we're not bound to 100%.
Or one.
You're right.
Or zero.
Yeah.
Percent. Because you just said percent, 0%.
Just because we're saying we're paying this year at 100% doesn't mean we'll do anything next year. We're not gonna pay anything. We're gonna just allow people to participate if they want to.
So it's gonna have to be acted on.
Yeah.
That's the main point of that.
Mhm.
It's gonna have to be acted on. like some of the other things that did get acted on that come back around, this we should get acted on. So if there's any way to put that on the Polymer deal with big bold print.
Yellow highlighter.
All in favor?
Now, wait a minute, wait a minute. Does it say explicitly that 100% stands in the event that nobody wants to alter it?
Jones moved to clarify the record, to pay 100% of insurance premiums and to revisit all available options at renewal or expiration, including assignment of a percentage of premium responsibility to the commissioner covered.
Okay, when you said that first sentence, at 100% until renewability, until renewable.
Pay 100% of just for this current.
For the current year, that would be a good phrase, maybe.
Okay. But we do that, and that's a good thing, we do it for every employee, every whole country, everything, it's gonna happen again. Especially if we change country. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So at renewal time, all of our employees will get that.
Did you ask for a second for that motion? I second it.
Oh, yeah, you did, yes. Okay, on
What do we got like this?
Just that line, talking about
the question about the state's attorney and representation of the state's attorney or the state's attorney's office.
Is this personnel thing, or can we talk about it out here, or we just talking about a timing issue of getting somebody here for meetings? That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I think that's fine, yeah.
I don't know if we need to do this by motion or just consensus, but we have a lack of communication between our commission and state's attorney's office, and too many times I don't think we're getting an answer out of that office. And I would think that and I know Elton is busy at court a lot of times when we're having meetings. I would suggest that maybe Rebecca, being a paralegal anyway, could come and represent that state's attorney's office, and maybe we'd have better communication, better representation from our state's attorney's office. I don't think she even has to be here every meeting. Just let her know that, hey, we might call you and have you run out if we've got a question. Do you think that's a reasonable solution to better contact with the state's attorney's office?
I think it's unreasonable of us to expect to receive legal advice.
So, not legal
We're
advice.
not talking about legal advice.
We're talking about just making sure that we have clear communication with the state's attorney's office. And I think Rebecca is capable of relaying our questions and concerns.
More like a liaison,
Yeah.
you know, she would be here just to carry our wishes or.
You know, there's different times we'd like to have Elton's input on a particular subject. She would know what the subject is that we want the opinion on. She would never offer us.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think she would either.
No,
A responsible person.
no, but I mean, we wouldn't even expect.
But when we
We just wanted someone that could go from this board to the state's attorney.
Carry our messages
Yeah.
back and forth.
Instead of just personally going to him, not saying that we still can't.
Yeah.
But if she walked out here with 4 PowerPoints that were discussed, that all had legal implications to that, she just carried them back, you know, with some insight. Rather than a phone call from one of us 4 times, rather over the phone.
She would probably understand our question sometimes better than maybe even the question we're asking. She would maybe know how to relay that question to Elton way better than one of us has been asking. Elton ourselves. We already pay her 25% of her, salary.
Would it be unreasonable to have her come like, I don't know if she can't even, but who would come from, say she's here from 2 to 3? And then they would feel like, for a
Oh,
question.
like reserve her spot on the.
Yeah.
Just not even on the agenda, just that we would put our agenda items that might come into play there between the time period when she's here.
That's the game of community.
And then she would go, or, I don't know. if
You
that's
wouldn't have to be here for the whole meeting.
Right.
If she was on schedule for 3 o'clock today, every meeting, and she came there, and if we have legal matters that we wanted to pass back, and you need to give us an opportunity to go into executive session and fill them out, and I don't know, take these back with this much importance to them.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's even a problem to just, call her up, we can jot notes and call her up towards the end of the meeting. There's been a lot of times I've stopped in there and the office is locked up and the lights are off during business hours, so it's obviously not a problem that she just locked the door and turned the lights off, come up here for 30 minutes, but
There's
I think-
an liability that you had, I don't know, that's what you're asking, is shoot a hole in this document.
Nobody needs to convince me of anything, because I'm not gonna opine, any further on the question. 2 reasons. 1, I discussed this matter with Rebecca. 2, I discussed this matter with Elton. And I am liaison to that office. I have not succeeded in coming to a kind of a conclusion or resolution, that satisfies all parties. So I choose not to get involved in further discussion on that. You guys can do what you want. I'm not angry with anybody at all. Come on.
I just think we need a better way to communicate rather than just send a phone call.
What did you say, Luke?
I think we need to go into executive session. I make a move to go into executive session.
We have another matter in executive session too, and we'll,
Personnel,
that's personnel,
So we're done.
we're done. And, then we'll go to that next.
you get a sec, I'll second this motion, we didn't have one.
Aye.
Yeah.
Let's take care of him first.